Chapter 1483. Before going to Chaoyang Palace, Chu Qingyan had someone send a message to her family's ice cube, informing him of her arrival. Standing once again at the entrance of the palace, which symbolized the highest power in the harem, Chu Qingyan felt as if a lifetime had passed. The last time she remembered was 6 years ago, when she and the ice cube were preparing to travel north. Empress Liang had closed the door and refused to see them. It was also at that time that she saw the ice cube's annihilation of familial love. Now that she stood here, she could still feel the ice cube's disappointment at that time. She lowered her head and stroked her belly. In her heart, she said to the little baby, "Good baby, mother will definitely love you well and won't let you suffer any grievances." Empress Liang had long received the news that Chu Qingyan had come. At this time, the palace gates were wide open, and Chu Qingyan's group entered the main hall unimpeded. Chu Qingyan, who originally had some emotions, immediately choked on her dissatisfaction and complaints when she saw the person sitting at the head of the table. She couldn't say anything. Her hair, which used to be jet black and beautiful, was now as white as snow. Her smooth and rosy skin had lost its luster, and wrinkles covered her entire face. Her rich and noble figure was now emaciated, and even the complicated palace attire couldn't hide her frailness. It had only been a few months since the Sichuan emperor's death, but the incomparably dignified mother of the country had now aged beyond recognition. Chu Qingyan didn't know what had happened during this time, but she knew that the ice cube wouldn't do anything to mistreat his imperial mother. Shock was shock, but Chu Qingyan still immediately bowed, and no one could find fault with it. Qingyan greets Nyang. May Nyang have good fortune and safety. Good fortune and safety. Empress Liang didn't miss the shock in Chu Qingyan's eyes. She shook her head with a bitter smile. No matter how high one's power is, there's no way to have good fortune and safety. Luo Yun, take a seat. Chu Qingyan could hear that she wasn't targeting her, so she sat down. Empress Liang's gaze fell on her belly, and her empty eyes regained some spirit. How many months? Almost 7 months. Time really flies. When I was pregnant with Su, it was over 20 years ago. Now, in the blink of an eye, he's going to have his own child. Time really doesn't spare anyone. Empress Liang sighed with emotion, and her words were filled with desolation and sorrow. Before coming here, Chu Qingyan could still figure out the Empress's intentions. However, after chatting for a while, she realized that it was all about the baby. She couldn't guess why the Empress had called her here. Was she purely concerned about her child? Perhaps people would change after experiencing something, but she believed that it wouldn't change a person completely all of a sudden. After chatting for a while, Empress Liang finally revealed her purpose. Chu girl, Su, has a grudge against me and doesn't want to see me. I had no choice but to come up with this plan and have you make a special trip. Empress Liang had always been arrogant. She rarely lowered her head like this and spoke humbly to her. It was hard for Chu Qingyan not to be surprised by this. However, she couldn't forget the suffering that Big Ice Cube had suffered for so many years. Even if Empress Liang expressed goodwill now, she wouldn't be soft-hearted. Empress, if you have something to say, please speak frankly. Empress Liang knew that it was already a blessing to be able to see her, so she didn't expect her to treat her well. She nodded and said, Chu girl, I know that Su, won't let the Liang family off, but please say a few words to him. No one who stands in a high position has clean hands. In order to not be dragged down by others, methods have become the foundation of their survival. Empress, as an official, as long as it's for the benefit of the common people, it's forgivable to use some methods. However, Chu Qingyan's gaze became sharp. For their own selfish interests, for their own power and wealth, they use unscrupulous methods to become vermin of the court. They harm the common people and don't care about the people's livelihood. This kind of person doesn't deserve to be an official. Therefore, you don't have to absolve the Liang family. After so many years, you and I are well aware of how many dirty things they've done that harm others for their own benefit. When she and Big Ice Cube had traveled north, they'd punished so many corrupt officials and seen so many people living in poverty. The darkness under the prosperous times she'd experienced was far from what Empress Liang, who was born noble and lived a pampered life, could understand. Empress Liang was choked by her words. Because of the previous orders, the people beside her didn't dare to stand out and scold Chu Qingyan for not respecting her elders and offending her superiors. They could only glare at Chu Qingyan, but they were also shocked by her boldness. Chu Qingyan thought that Empress Liang would fly into a rage from the younger generation's merciless words, but she didn't. After her face paled a little, she recovered her calm. She looked at Chu Qingyan with an unfathomable expression. Little Chu, I don't deny that you're right, but when people hold power in their hands, very few people won't lose themselves. However, today, we don't want to discuss this problem. Empress Liang coughed softly. After recovering from her shock, she continued, the Liang family may have committed too many evil deeds to the point where they can't be eliminated, but they have also done a lot for Su-er. From the moment Su-er was born, they have supported him and sought power and benefits for him in places where no one could see. Otherwise, this world would have already become Shaorance. Even if they didn't make any contributions, they have worked hard. For this reason, can Su-er show some mercy? Just as Empress Liang finished speaking, she felt an intense gaze that couldn't be ignored locked onto her. She raised her head and met Chu Qingyan's cold and indifferent gaze. She felt that she was being suppressed and couldn't help but be stunned. At such a young age, she already had such an aura. When she was fully grown, how stunning and dazzling would she be? Nyang Nyang, do you think that the Liang family is sincerely helping His Highness and not because of his status? And have you ever treated His Highness with sincerity? Have you treated him as your own flesh and blood and planned a broad path for him instead of using him to obtain more power for the Liang family and to satisfy your own vanity? Chu Qingyan threw one question after another at Empress Liang, causing her face to turn pale and she was at a loss. She stood up and said coldly to the person at the head of the table, Nyang Nyang, as the master of the inner palace, you should know that the inner palace is not allowed to interfere in politics. Therefore, Empress Liang, Qingyan, is powerless to do what Nyang Nyang has requested. Farewell. She was exonerating the Liang family. She felt that if this was the reason Empress Liang had called her here, then there was nothing that could be said between them. When Xining supported Empress Liang and prepared to leave, she suddenly heard an urgent voice chasing after them from behind. I have some things that can help Su-er. I can exchange them with you. When these words fell, Chu Qingyan stopped in her tracks and slowly turned around to look at Empress Liang. The delicate woman looked at her against the light, a hint of ridicule appearing in her eyes. Empress Liang's heart was filled with bitterness. She never thought that in the end, she would still use this kind of method. However, she was already at the end of her rope. What else could she ask for? What else could she hope for? Chapter 1484. Chu Qingyan returned to her seat. Regarding the big ice cube, she would never let her guard down. She clasped her hands on her knees and smiled faintly, Nyang Nyang, please point me in the right direction. Chu Qingyan was someone who could stretch and shrink, had an exquisite heart, and was smooth and slick in dealing with people. Empress Liang couldn't help but admire this girl's ability to change her expression. However, she didn't have the time and energy to explore this right now. She raised her hand and made a gesture. Luo Yun led 2 palace maids to Chu Qingyan. The palace maids each held a box in their hands. Chu Qingyan didn't understand what was going on. At this time, Empress Liang spoke. You'll know what's inside once you open the box. At this time, Jasper took the lead and walked out. She couldn't let her master do this kind of thing. If this empress had bad intentions and tampered with the box, then it would be terrible. Empress Liang didn't have any objections to their cautious and careful appearance. Jasper opened the first box and took out an account book. After checking that it wasn't sprinkled with poisonous powder and that there were no problems, she handed it over to her master behind her. Chu Qingyan casually flipped through a few pages. As she reached the end, her expression became more and more serious. Her flipping speed also became faster and faster. When she finally finished flipping, She raised her head. This is the Liang family's property of nearly 100 years. Chu Qingyan looked at the person sitting in the seat with a complicated expression. 100 years of property. It was equivalent to half of the current Sichuan's national treasury. She knew that the Liang family's business was big, but she didn't think it was big to this extent. Empress Liang didn't seem to see the strange expression on her face and continued, the Liang family has 100 years of foundation. They entered the world through martial arts and accumulated illustrious military achievements. Much of the money was awarded by the higher-ups, and some was obtained through some means over the years. On the surface, the Liang family's property has been confiscated, but the hidden wealth is unknown unless it's the few people in charge of the Liang family. However, the Liang family is no longer alive to use these, so give them to Su. Now that he wants to ascend the throne, there are many places where he needs money. Although she was shocked speechless by the huge number of words, Chu Qingyan still maintained her calm on the surface because at this time, Jasper had already gone to open the second box. Because of the foreshadowing before, Chu Qingyan was mentally prepared to face the second box. When she saw Jasper take out an old token, Chu Qingyan didn't underestimate it. Empress Liang's gaze fell on the token in Chu Qingyan's hand. Her gaze changed slightly, and then there was a fluctuation. That token can mobilize a team of secret guards secretly trained by the Liang family. There are a total of 108 people. In the face of Chu Qingyan's doubts, Empress Liang continued, although there aren't many people, each of them is an expert who can fight against 10 people at once. They are not much worse than the fierce cavalry. And these secret guards are the best ones selected from every generation of the Liang family's descendants and given to the Liang family's elders to train. They are best at assassination. Now, there are many treacherous officials who can't be dealt with by national law on the surface, and there will be in the future. They must be dealt with by extreme means, but this can't touch the forces on the surface, not even the fierce cavalry. However, with this token, Su can mobilize the Liang family's secret guards to carry out these tasks. Don't worry, the Liang family's secret guards only recognize tokens, so you don't have to worry about them betraying their master. Empress Liang answered the question in her heart. Chu Qingyan looked at the heavy things in the box, her gaze very puzzled. Why are you giving them to me? These two are the Liang family's trump cards, the protective talismans that the Liang family has left behind for 100 years. But I know that Su won't care about them, but I also know that he cares a lot about you. And with your feelings for him, you won't watch him give up such an important and convenient path and insist on charging through it himself. He will listen to your words. When she learned that the palace these two people lived in was named after the two of them by Su, she knew how deep the two children's feelings were. If we accept these things, but they don't meet your wishes? Chu Qingyan asked with a deep gaze. Empress Liang smiled bitterly. Then we will accept it. On her father's side, she had done her best. Chu Qingyan looked at the two boxes and suddenly felt a chill in her heart. She stroked her stomach and slowly said, Nyang Nyang, I will tell His Highness your wishes. Light flashed through Empress Liang's gloomy eyes, but before she could be happy, she heard her speak again. But Nyang Nyang, you have taken another wrong step. Without waiting for Empress Liang to ask, Chu Qingyan continued to speak. If you took the initiative to offer these two things to atone for your crimes, perhaps His Highness would be lenient on account of the Liang family's many years of achievements. He would also be able to see that you are truly remorseful and make up for your many years of wrongdoing to His Highness. But you chose to exchange. This has a different meaning. It is too cold-blooded and too heartless. Chu Qingyan stood up, and Jasper also put away the two boxes. She stood behind her with Xining. Her gaze swept over the boxes, and then looked at the person whose eyes were already unfocused. Her lips parted slightly. Nyang Nyang Nyang, you are a qualified daughter, but unfortunately, you are not a qualified mother. Empress Liang stared with wide eyes as Chu Qingyan led her people out of the palace until they disappeared from her sight. Nyang Nyang, dare I ask, have you ever done anything for His Highness that a mother should do? Have you ever loved him, just because of him? Just because of him, not because of his identity as a prince. Love him, protect him, just because of him. Chu Qingyan's words before she left were like the ringing of a bell, ringing loudly in her ears. Beloved Nyang Nyang Nyang, do you know what a young child is afraid of? What they are most afraid of is living in this world and no one cares about them. Empress Liang completely collapsed in her seat, her fingers trembling as she hugged her trembling shoulders. She shouldn't have vented her hatred on her own flesh and blood because she couldn't obtain the emperor's love. She shouldn't have let him experience the deepest coldness of familial love. She was wrong, completely wrong. But this was all her own doing, and she couldn't live. The scars were already there, and they couldn't be erased. Walking out of Chaoyang Palace, Chu Qingyan felt like she had experienced a great battle, and she felt powerless. Even now, Empress Liang still couldn't learn how to love her own child. It was really too sad. Her heart ached for Big Ice Cube. But she couldn't waste time being sad. She had to live well with Big Ice Cube and live through the rest of the days. She quickly walked back with her people. As he stepped onto the stairs, he saw the familiar figure standing below Yen Su Palace, as well as the clear eyes that relaxed after seeing him. Yen Su Palace, her face, his thoughts. He said that she had to walk in front of him so that he could protect her. When she wanted to rely on him, he could hug her in time. She smiled faintly like a flower, lifting her skirt to greet him. Chapter 1485. Seeing the little fellow standing in front of him unharmed, Xiao Su's raised heart finally settled down. He raised a hand to cover her head and softly reprimanded, "Why did you run to Chaoyang Palace on your own? You're already going to be a mother, how can you do things so inappropriately?" Although he was reprimanding her, his voice was filled with doting and reluctance to part, and did not sound stern at all. Chu Qingyan knew that he was doing it for her own good, so she hugged his arm and rubbed against it. I know. It won't happen again, and I've already informed you. Moreover, I'm not a child, I can protect myself no matter what. Also, you have so many people by my side, they're not to be trifled with, so don't worry. She admitted her mistake while explaining herself. She always knew how to deal with him. Xiao Su was not really angry. After she soothed him, he held her hand and walked into the hall. You're the only one who can talk. Why did Imperial Mother look for you? It's about the Liang family. Xiao Su lightly snorted. As expected. Chu Qingyan knew that although the Big Ice Cube did not say it on the surface, he was definitely disappointed in his heart. Empress Liang should have looked for him many times before, but he avoided meeting her. She was afraid that he did not want to experience being abandoned by his family again, so when Empress Liang sent people to find her, she agreed. What she wanted was to solve this problem for the Big Ice Cube. Aren't you going to ask me what I gained? She deliberately pulled his hand mischievously, trying to dissipate the gloominess between his brows. Xiao Su was amused by her childish appearance, and his heart was not as gloomy as before. He pinched her cheeks. You're still so naughty. Tell me, what did you gain? Chu Qingyan slapped away his hand that always liked to pinch her, and gave a look to Jasper. Jasper immediately walked up and presented 2 brocade boxes. Xiao Su had noticed these 2 boxes just now, and thought that they were a reward from Chaoyang Palace. Seeing her expression, there should be something inside. What is it? Xiao Su indicated and Turin and Hualing came forward to take the boxes. Then they opened them, revealing the 2 things inside. Chu Qingyan patted his hand and said, "Let's go and take a look. You will definitely be shocked." Xiao Su didn't know what was going on. He took the booklet and flipped through a few pages. His eyes suddenly froze. He closed it and smiled coldly. Previously, I felt that the silver in the Liang family's treasury was far from the actual amount that was stolen. I didn't expect it to be here. Of course, Chu Qingyan did not know that Big Ice Cube had already found out. She nodded and said, "A cunning rabbit has 3 burrows." Normally, the richer and more powerful a person is, the better they know how to hide. However, To be able to hide from the fierce wind cavalry's intelligence network, it is really impressive. Xiao Su did not comment, and his eyes fell on the token in the second box. Chu Qingyan saw this and immediately repeated Empress Liang's words to him. Xiao Su was expressionless. Until Chu Qingyan finished, he threw the two things back into the box. Give the account book to second prince and the token to Prince Yi. Let them deal with it. Turan and Hualing did not say anything and left the palace with the things. After giving the order, Xiao Su was in a daze for a while, as if he was thinking about a lot of things, but also as if he wasn't thinking about anything at all. At this moment, a warm and soft feeling appeared in his cold palm. He turned his head and met a pair of understanding eyes. Big Ice Cube, I took these two things without your consent. Did I make things difficult for you? Xiao Su held the softness in his hand and smiled. No, don't think too much. You helped me solve the problem by doing this. I should thank you. That's good. She snuggled up to him and leaned her head on his shoulder. She looked like she was clinging to him. The indescribable sense of loss in Xiao Su's heart disappeared after he felt her strong dependence on him. He didn't want to laugh anymore. He was no longer the helpless youth from 10 years ago. Now, he had a sweet burden on his shoulders. He had more warmth than he had in the past. Everything in the past was in the past. He raised his hand and stroked her long hair, enjoying the peace and quiet at this moment. Why did you ask Xiao Yao and Xiao Ho to do these two things? Chu Qingyan raised her head from his shoulder. Her big eyes were twinkling. Although she was asking, her eyes were full of playfulness and slyness. The little guy could naturally guess what he was thinking. She just wanted to verify it with him. Xiao Su chuckled. Take a guess. If you guess it, there will be a reward. You want to use this opportunity to train the two of them and choose the best successor. She licked her lips and revealed a treacherous smile. Xiao Su tapped her forehead, his eyes full of love. Not bad. Their temperaments are not bad. They can take on heavy responsibilities. It's just that it's a bit difficult for them to be qualified for the position of emperor. Xiao Yao was used to being lazy and lacked some restraints. That was why he had sent him to supervise the construction of the city in order to restrain his temper. This time, he had handed over the Liang family's assets to him for the same purpose. During this period, he would definitely come into contact with many troublesome officials. He would take the opportunity to practice. In the past, Xiao Ho still had some fighting spirit, but after what had happened with Pang Zhijing, his personality had greatly changed. He no longer had any desires, so he had to stimulate the warmonger in him. Moreover, there was another reason, which was that the command medallion would be even more useful in his hands. Big Ice Cube, you're so cunning. If they find out about your true intentions, will they quit? Chu Qingyan propped up her chin. When she imagined Xiao Yao jumping up and down and Xiao Ho's uncertain appearance, she couldn't help but laugh. You didn't come up with this idea? He asked with a smile. Ah. At first, she just felt that there were so many princes in the imperial family. It was unreasonable for him to be the only one busy. That was why she wanted to drag the two of them down. Who knew that the big ice block had other ideas? But it will take time to train them. Plus, the court is not stable. So I'm afraid I will have to be the emperor for a while. Xiao Su's fingers tapped on the armrest of the chair. He seemed to have a headache. I can only say that capable people do more work. There were so many people in the world who wanted to sit on the throne, but her big ice block didn't care. As expected, the man she liked was so different. Right, you said that there will be a reward if I guess correctly. What is the reward? The most noble person in the world to warm your bed. Big ice block, you're becoming more and more shameless. Many thanks for the praise, wife. I will work harder in the future. Too bad, too bad. But this was her own fault for spoiling him. So even if she cried, she had to continue spoiling him. Second prince's estate. Xiao Yao thought that he could relax for a few days, but Huo Ling had brought his royal brother's orders and a box. His lips twitched and he walked into his room in a hopeless manner, muttering to himself, I must still be drunk. No, I have to go sleep. In Prince Yi's estate, Xiao Ho saw the token and cursed shameless in his heart. On the surface, he had to smile and accept it. So angry, but he still had to smile. Chapter 1486. The news of the Liang and Fu families' case being publicly heard by the Chancellor of the Supreme Court had been released early on. On that day, the yamen was filled with commoners, so crowded that not even a drop of water could trickle through. Xiao Su brought along Xiao Yao and Xiao Ho to listen to the hearing. The two families were tried separately. The Fu family had committed many evil deeds, and their crimes were too numerous to be recorded. The entire complaint was filled with conclusive evidence, and there was even a confession, so the trial was held in court. The Fu family was investigated, and 9 generations of the family were implicated. The officials who were implicated were also severely punished. The crimes committed by the Liang family were no less than those committed by the Fu family. However, seeing that the Liang family had accomplished many generations of meritorious deeds for Xixian, as well as the fact that they had voluntarily handed over the money they had embezzled, they were spared the death penalty. However, while the death penalty could be spared, they could not escape punishment. They were all exiled to the furthest border. When the officials present announced the verdict, many of the commoners outside shed tears. They had been persecuted by these treacherous people, and today, they finally saw the court give a fair verdict. They could not control themselves, and tears flowed down their faces. They knelt outside and kowtowed in thanks. Long live His Royal Highness. The King of England is wise. Xiao Su also heard the commotion outside, but in his opinion, this was what he should do. How is it, are they here? He asked Xiao Ho beside him. Xiao Ho smiled and nodded. I saw many of them hiding in the crowd. Although I didn't see Xiao Ran, it doesn't make a difference. Our goal has been achieved. Xiao Su nodded. This public trial was to lure the snake out of its hole. After more than half a month of planning, it finally did not go to waste. Xiao Yao shook his head. It seems that we can offend anyone but our eldest brother. No one can compare to his patience in lying in wait. As soon as he finished speaking, Xiao Yao received a cold glare from his royal brother. He immediately pretended to pull a thread over his mouth. He glanced at Xiao Ho, who was watching the show from the side, and suddenly realized that his third brother's patience was not bad. It seemed that he could not offend either of these two great Buddhas. Otherwise, one day, he would be plotted against so badly that even his pants would be pawned off. In a tea house not far from the Supreme Court, a man wearing a black bamboo hat stood by the window and listened to his subordinate's report. The verdict has just been announced. The execution will take place 3 days later at noon. The man's hand gripped the windowsill, his veins bulging as if he was restraining something. At this moment, the commoners below were cheering for Qian Sui thrice. Her chin, which was not covered by the veil, curled up into a mocking smile. He loosened his grip and suppressed his anger. Let's go back first. Yes. The group of people shuttled through the bustling crowd and slowly walked towards a secluded mansion. When he stepped into the main hall, the people waiting inside were already impatient. As soon as they saw the man return, they immediately went up to him, grabbed the man's sleeve, and anxiously asked, "How was it?" The woman who greeted him was none other than Consort Yu, who had disappeared for a long time. The man who was being questioned raised his hand and took off his bamboo hat, revealing a handsome and determined face. It was Xiao Ran, whom she had not seen for a long time. He pulled his sleeve out of Consort Yu's hands, walked to the table and put down his bamboo hat. He took the tea from the servant and moistened his throat. Then he turned to Consort Yu, who looked uneasy. The verdict has been announced. Grandfather and his family will be executed at noon 3 days later. There will be no exceptions. When Consort Yu heard the news, although she was mentally prepared, her legs still went weak and she almost fell down. Fortunately, the servant girl beside her caught her. She came back to her senses and angrily pushed the servant away. Her eyes were ferocious as she said, "It is all Xiao Su's fault. He must be the one who wanted to harm the Fu family. Otherwise, this would not have happened." Seeing her angry face, Xiao Ran sighed softly. "Mother, the Fu family brought all of this upon themselves. Even if it was someone else, they would have suffered the same fate." As soon as Imperial Concubine Moon finished speaking, she slapped him across the face. Xiao Ran's face was slapped to the side. He rubbed his burning cheek in a daze and looked at the person in front of him with disbelief. Ever since he was a child, his mother had never hit him like this. However, Consort Yu was so angry that she did not notice the shock on her son's face. She pointed at him angrily and said, "Ranner, do you still have a heart? Those are your family members, your maternal grandfather, your uncles, your cousins. They are all in this state because of you." He opened his mouth and wanted to say that they had become slaves to power and that was why they had brought about their own destruction. However, he knew that saying this at this time would only add fuel to the fire. Therefore, no matter how upset he was, he chose to keep his mouth shut. "Ranner, mother will ask you one question. Are you going to save them or not?" Consort Yu looked at him with a tense face. Her expression was unprecedentedly terrifying. "Mother, aren't you afraid that this is a trap to lure us out?" Xiao Ran asked with a wooden face. Consort Yu was going crazy. She said angrily, "So what? Our men are all outside the capital. Are you afraid that we can't beat them? Besides, regardless of whether it is a trap or not, your maternal grandfather's family is as important as a mountain to you. Are you going to watch them die without doing anything?" Seeing his mother like this, Xiao Ran felt a lump in his throat. He was unable to say anything. In the end, he seemed to compromise and said, "All right, I will save them." Consort Yu finally relaxed after hearing this. It was also at this time that she seemed to realize that her behavior was too extreme. Looking at his red cheeks, her heart began to hurt again. She said timidly, "Ranner, does it hurt a lot?" Xiao Ran smiled bitterly and shook his head. "It doesn't hurt. I have thick skin." That's good, that's good." It was unclear whether she was saying this to him or to herself. "If there's nothing else, then I will go and make arrangements." Xiao Ran felt that he could no longer calmly stay with her. Consort Yu also knew that her son was feeling uncomfortable. She could only murmur in agreement and watch him disappear through the door. After leaving the main hall, Xiao Ran threw himself against a tree in the courtyard. He struggled to look in the direction of the sun. It was as if he wanted to use the blinding light to stab his eyes and prevent the tears from welling up in his eyes. Why did everything turn out like this? It was like a dream. After waking up from the dream, everything had turned upside down. Xiao Ran closed his eyes and exiled himself in the shadow of the tree. Inside the imperial palace, Xiao Ho stood in front of the table. He raised his hands and bowed. "I've already sensed that there are changes inside and outside the capital. Should we take action now?" Xiao Yao followed his brother's gaze and looked at the person sitting on the main seat. Xiao Su thought for a moment. His eyes flashed. "Pass down the order. In order to prevent any unforeseen events during the execution, no one is allowed to enter or leave the city for the next 2 days." Xiao Ho obeyed. Xiao Su continued, "Have Wu Lin and his men wait 5 kilometers outside the city. Be prepared to take them in at any time." Xiao Yao gestured from the side. Looks like Xiao Ran won't be able to jump around for much longer this time. Xiao Su and Xiao Ho looked at each other and saw the amusement in each other's eyes. Chapter 1487. When Xiao Su returned to Yen Su Palace, the table was already full of dishes waiting for him. "Didn't I say that if it was time, you could eat and not wait for me to come back?" Xiao Su quickly walked over and scolded the person who was waiting for him with a smile. Chu Qingyan pursed her lips and retorted, "You're always getting people to cook this and that for me. I'm not hungry. Furthermore, we're a family. Of course, I have to wait for you to come back before eating." What's wrong with me eating alone? Xiao Su sighed lightly. The little one could always warm his heart with just a few words. He raised a hand to stroke her head. Then I will try to finish my business early in the future and come back. That's the best. She smiled at him obediently. Xiao Su pinched her face before sitting down with her. A while ago, her reaction wasn't very strong, but she couldn't stand the smell of oil or meat. So most of the time, the table was filled with vegetables, radishes, pickled vegetables and tofu. In order to accompany her, Xiao Su ate whatever she ate during that time, which made her heart ache. But no matter what she said, he wanted to share her joys and sorrows. She remembered that he had said that being pregnant was an extremely difficult matter. He couldn't bear it for her, so he could only accompany her on these small matters. At the time, she had been moved. Thinking about it now, her heart still warmed. So now that she could accept these tastes, she had the Imperial Kitchen prepare all kinds of delicious food to make up for the nutrition that the big ice cube had lacked. He hadn't even ascended the throne yet, so she couldn't let people think that she had embezzled her family's big ice cube's rations. She would make the big ice cube carry the reputation of being henpecked. Recently, her body had become a bit heavy, but the little one was not as tired as she had been in the past few months. Seeing her in high spirits every day, Xiao Su's mood was also very good. Even the ministers who worked with him could clearly feel that the Lord's temper had improved. Originally, the Lord was like a moving ice cube. If he was still unhappy, then they would be frozen into ice. They rejoiced that the little Wang Fei was here. They wanted to kowtow in thanks. Of course, Chu Qingyan didn't know about this. The Fu family is going to be executed tomorrow. Will Xiao Ran really show up? I think he should be able to tell that this is a trap. Chu Qingyan took a bite of the sweet and sour pork ribs he handed over and raised her head to ask. Xiao Su wiped the stain on the corner of her mouth and said unhurriedly, "It's not up to him. Even if he doesn't show up, his whereabouts have been exposed. It's only a matter of time before he's arrested. You don't have to worry." Chu Qingyan sighed faintly. In the end, it still came to this step. I'd rather he stay away from the imperial court, stay away from the Sichuan, go far away, and never come back. Xiao Ran was at fault, but none of this was caused by him. It could be said that he had unknowingly become someone's accomplice. It's very difficult. Don't forget that he still has Consort you by his side. Even though so many things have happened, there are still some things about him that haven't changed. For example, he is easily swayed. Xiao Su shook his head. Chu Qingyan thought of Consort Yu, who had exposed her ambitions in front of the emperor's couch. She had to admit that Xiao Ran was well protected by her. At the same time, he had become the sharp sword in her hand. It was his misfortune and sorrow to have met such a mother. Seeing the little fellow's thoughtful expression, Xiao Su patted her hand and comforted her. We are just dust floating in the world. We can't interfere with other people's lives, and we can't change them. Chu Qingyan nodded. Xiao Ran had brought this upon himself. Even if they used to be friends, they couldn't help him. The night was very quiet. Xiao Ran stood in the courtyard. Tomorrow would be the day of the execution, but at this moment, his heart was incomparably calm. Consort Yu was still worried, so under the guidance of a servant, she came to find him. What she saw was him staring blankly at the moon. Imperial concubine Moon walked up. At this time, the person under the tree sensed that someone had arrived. He turned around and their gazes collided in midair. It's so late. Imperial Mother, are you still not going to rest? Xiao Ran gathered his emotions and smiled with concern. Consort Yu sighed. Imperial Mother can't sleep. I'm a bit worried about tomorrow. Xiao Ran smiled indifferently. Imperial Mother doesn't need to worry. I have already prepared a foolproof plan. Consort Yu was still a bit worried. She wanted to say something, but she saw her son's eyes turn cold and distant. Her heart thumped and the smile on her face stiffened. Ranner, are you dissatisfied with Imperial Mother? Xiao Ran shook his head. I don't dare. Don't dare. Then you are. Consort Yu wasn't stupid. She knew that he was dissatisfied with her forcing him to do things at this stage. Is there anything that can't be said between the two of us? Imperial Mother can see that you have something on your mind recently. Xiao Ran looked deeply at the person in front of him, the person closest to him in the world. Imperial Mother, there are some words that I have been hiding in my heart for a long time, but I haven't found a chance to say them. Consort Yu was stunned. Then she said, say it. Imperial Mother will listen. Has Imperial Mother ever regretted walking to this day? Xiao Ran looked into her eyes as he asked. Regret? That's right. To this day, I feel that we seem to have done a lot of things wrong. Consort Yu's smile disappeared when she heard this. Her voice was a bit unhappy. Ranner, what nonsense are you saying? How could we have done anything wrong? Isn't that right? Xiao Ran smiled weakly. Our family of 3 is living well. Why do we have to do these things to seize power? We've never been mistreated, have we? Those 2 words pierced the deepest part of Consort Yu's heart. She screamed, what do you know? The weak are prey to the strong in this world. If you don't have power, you'll be eaten alive by others sooner or later. If you don't fight for it, you'll be trampled under others' feet. Only when you have power and stand at the top can you live as you wish and live without worries. So for your own selfish desires, you can even hurt the people closest to you. Xiao Ho felt as if the blood in his body was about to freeze, but it couldn't stop the pain in his heart from deepening. Consort Yu was a bit stunned. She forced a smile and tried to cover it up. Ranner, what are you talking about? Why can't Imperial Mother understand a single word? Xiao Ran's lips curled into a mocking smile. The moonlight fell on him, making him appear very cold. No, Imperial Mother. I knows that you can understand. You know better than anyone else what I's talking about. Consort Yu looked at him in disbelief. Could it be that you know everything? I sent people into the palace to investigate after you got into trouble. So, he closed his eyes and said in a pained voice, I knew everything that happened in Imperial Father's bedroom. Consort Yu stiffened and took a few steps back. She looked at him with embarrassment and murmured, then why didn't you expose me back then? Chapter 1488. Xiao Ran opened his eyes. There were tears in his eyes, and they were filled with immense pain. Because you are my consort mother. She was his consort mother who loved and cared for him the most since he was young. But my most beloved consort mother killed my most respected imperial father with her own hands. Consort mother, do you know how I felt at that time? When he found out the truth, his heart felt like it was being cut by a knife. What kind of earth-shattering feeling was that? What kind of despair and pain? When Xiao Ran said these words, Consort Yu was already choking with sobs. It wasn't that she didn't regret it, it wasn't that she didn't hate it, and it wasn't that she didn't feel pain. But compared to her own greed, she didn't think she was wrong. Ranner, Consort Mother did everything for you. However, when Consort Yu finished speaking, she was cut off by Xiao Ran. His eyes were filled with even more disappointment and pain. He slowly shook his head, no, for me is just an excuse. He wanted to say something else, but he already felt that everything was meaningless. He turned around and didn't look at the person behind him. His voice was hoarse, but his tone was very calm. It was like nothing had happened. He was polite and distant, you can go back. I'll personally go save grandfather tomorrow, so don't worry. Consort Yu was about to collapse, but she knew that this was not the best time to talk. Even if she had 1,000 words in her heart, she could only hold them in. In a daze, she felt like the sun in front of her was getting farther and farther away from her. All right, we can talk after we save your grandfather and the others. Rest well, Consort Mother will go back first. Consort Yu swayed as she turned around to leave. Tonight's unpleasant conversation had come to an end. The sound of footsteps slowly faded away, but it felt like each step was stepping on his heart. Every step was filled with pain. Xiao Yao leaned his body against a tree. He had no strength left. Qing Yan, you're right. A person's greed is endless. If you can't guard your heart, you'll be dragged into the abyss by those evil thoughts and never be able to return. He muttered as his eyes gradually lost focus. It was the end of winter and the beginning of spring. The snow gradually melted and the weather became colder. However, the cold weather couldn't stop people from wanting to watch the show. It wasn't noon yet, but the place where the execution would be carried out was already filled with citizens. They were all filled with righteous indignation and excitement. The execution official was Xiao Yao. He impatiently gathered his clothes. He couldn't be blamed for being in the limelight recently. It was his big brother who cared about the opposite sex. However, he was too spineless. Every time eldest imperial brother glanced at him, he would eagerly accept the task. Not far from the execution platform, a few figures stood on the roof. They used the raised eaves to cover their tracks. Your Highness, it's better if you don't go. Let your subordinates save the people. One of the subordinates advised in a low voice. Xiao Ran waved his hand. I've made up my mind. Then Your Highness, why don't you prepare an arrow formation? There are so many citizens. Those people must be busy taking care of the citizens' lives. It'll be more convenient for us to save the people. Xiao Ran's expression darkened. No need to say more. Once they appear, we'll act according to the plan. The subordinates didn't dare to say anything. They quietly waited for the situation to change. Xiao Yao was used to being lazy. He didn't stand or sit properly. The officials sitting next to him also didn't dare to say anything. Who didn't know how many things the two princes had done to help His Royal Highness? Brothers working together was a great blessing for a country. Therefore, these small problems were much more pleasing to the eye. Thus, the officials looked down and turned a blind eye. Xiao Yao stroked his chin. His eyes intentionally or unintentionally swept across the crowd. When he saw a familiar figure appear among the citizens, even if it was disguised, it couldn't hide the brilliance of the whole body. He couldn't help but twitch the corner of his mouth. It can't be, even third brother came. Xiao Ho sensed his gaze and looked over. He nodded at him and then paid attention to the surrounding movements. Xiao Yao was rolling in joy in his heart. It seemed that he wasn't alone on this mission. Originally, he had complained that his eldest brother was biased and only sent him alone. Now, his heart felt better. Share blessings and share troubles. Not bad, not bad. There was a commotion in the crowd. Xiao Yao's gaze became serious, sweeping away his sloppy appearance. He narrowed his eyes and looked at the prisoners brought in by the yamen runners. The right prime minister, who used to be second only to one person, was now dejected. He was no longer glorious. The prisoner's uniform drooped on his body and fell into the dust. The others followed behind him. They were no longer in high spirits. There was only despair and the fear of death. Xiao Yao sighed and shook his head. The officials beside him wanted to please him. They bent over and asked with a smile, Your Highness, what are you thinking about? If you don't do it, you won't die. The officials immediately straightened their backs and pretended that they didn't hear anything. Xiao Yao laughed lowly. He felt a sense of pleasure from teasing someone. However, when he raised his head, he met third brother's disapproving gaze, indicating that he should do his job properly. Xiao Yao didn't feel embarrassed at all when he was caught red-handed doing something bad. Instead, he smiled even more brilliantly. If you're not convinced, come and bite me. Xiao Ho didn't want to bicker with his childish brother. He paid more attention to his surroundings because he knew that Xiao Ran had already arrived and was hiding in the surroundings. When the prisoners knelt down, there was still some time before the execution. The commoners threw the prepared rotten eggs and vegetables at the prisoners, smashing them fiercely on their bodies. Dog officials. Retribution. Heaven has eyes. Good and evil will be repaid in the end. It wasn't that it wasn't time yet. Xiao Ho looked away and swept his gaze elsewhere. At this time, there was movement in the crowd. The assassins hidden among the commoners pulled out their weapons and quickly passed through the crowd, heading straight for the guards on the periphery. Dozens of black shadows flew down from the eaves not far away. They headed straight for the execution platform. In an instant, there were flashes of swords and screams. Although the change happened in the blink of an eye, Xiao Yao, who was already prepared, chuckled. He waved his hand and the people hidden in the shadows immediately surged forward. They evacuated the commoners and attacked the assassins. The scene was chaotic. There were sounds of fighting. Xiao Yao sat majestically on the execution platform. He calmly looked down at the people who were fighting fiercely. The officials had a whole new level of respect for him. The second prince was so calm, so cool. Xiao Yao was roaring in his heart. He really wanted to go down and fight. He really wanted to. But Imperial Brother didn't allow it. He didn't allow it. I want to fight. Chapter 1489. At this time, a figure landed on the execution platform. His aura and elegance were different from the other assassins. He was masked, only revealing a pair of calm eyes. He held a long sword in his hand and his gaze fell on the prisoner on the platform. Grandfather, Ranner is here to save you. Ranner, this is a trap. Leave quickly. The right Prime Minister was surprised and happy, but then he reacted and immediately shouted at him. Xiao Ran sighed in his heart. He knew. There was one more person on the execution platform. Xiao Ho. His expression was gentle, and he held a sword in his hand. It made the elegant young master look more elegant and confident. Since you're here, why don't you show your true face, my good fourth brother? Xiao Ran lifted his hand and took off his mask. He smiled lightly. Long time no see, third brother. Long time no see. I didn't expect to meet you again in such a situation. I'm very sorry. Xiao Ho smiled warmly, as if he was really welcoming his younger brother who had not returned for a long time. Xiao Ran chuckled. That's right. The past is like smoke. If I hadn't experienced so many things, I wouldn't have been able to see what kind of person third brother is. Oh. Then you can see what kind of person I am. Xiao Ho seemed to be asking seriously. Xiao Ran frowned slightly, as if he was thinking. You hide deep and are a gentle knife. This evaluation sounds better than sinister and cunning. Thank you fourth brother for giving me face. Xiao Ho smiled faintly. Is that so? Xiao Ran chuckled. Big brother once said that if you want to identify a person, you can't use your eyes and ears. But time will tell you the answer. Xiao Ho was like a good brother who was preaching, sincerely exhorting. Xiao Ran cupped his hands. I've learned. Brothers, back and forth, smiling warmly, but there was a knife hidden in their smiles. They had already fought several times. Don't give me this empty talk. Do you still want to fight? If not, I'm going home to eat. After a busy day, he was almost starving to death. I haven't had my breakfast yet. A grumbling voice interrupted. The two of them looked over at the same time. Xiao Yao was twisting his neck and swinging his waist, glaring at the two of them with a grumbling expression. Xiao Ho looked at the chaos around him and smiled. Fourth brother, shall we spar? I'll do as you say. Xiao Ran calmly replied. As soon as he finished speaking, Xiao Yao saw the shadows of swords and sabers on the execution platform. The figures of the two seemed to have disappeared in the light and shadow. He could only see one black and one white intertwined. He rubbed his eyes. These two people's martial arts were really high. He estimated that they would fight for a while. Forget it, he would go home for dinner later. Thus, he covered his face with a blanket and fell into a deep sleep. The officials at the side, at this stage, Xiao Ran's mind was too exhausted, and there were too many things on his mind. As he fought, he felt a little powerless. When the two of them were fighting, Xiao Ho could tell that Xiao Yao was not in a good state. He was not using his full strength and was holding back. In fact, in his opinion, Xiao Ran had improved over the years. His swordsmanship had improved a lot, and his temperament had also stabilized. As an older brother, he was gratified. However, he felt that he owed this younger brother of his. In that psychological battle, he did play a role in adding fuel to the fire. He should also take part of the responsibility for Xiao Ran's current state. Xiao Ran was the most passive in this game, but no one was innocent. After feeling the silent concern of his eldest brother and second brother, Xiao Ho had a new definition of the word brother. At this time, he felt guilty towards Xiao Ran. However, this guilt should not be used at this time. He could clearly distinguish between public and private matters. Xiao Ran's sword was knocked out of his hand. His fingers trembled slightly before he finally retracted them. He looked at Xiao Ho. His gaze pierced through the sunlight and was somewhat dazzling. He felt a little pain in his heart, but it still fell back to its original position. I lost. Admit it. Noon arrived just in time. The guards who were waiting at the side rushed forward and restrained Xiao Ran. At this time, someone brought a metal chain and prepared to lock him up. Xiao Ho raised his hand to stop them. No need. Send the fourth prince away. Since he was already prepared to die, he would not run away. Xiao Ran looked at him with a genuine smile in his eyes. Thank you for allowing me to retain my last shred of dignity. When he was taken away, the other black-clothed men were also subdued. The guards were cleaning up the execution platform. When there was no more movement, Xiao Yao grabbed the paper covering his face and jumped up. He stretched and said to everyone, "It's already past noon. Take him back to the prison and wait for His Royal Highness to deal with him." After this incident, no one had any objections. They all obeyed the order. As far as the eye could see, it was a complete mess. Xiao Yao would never admit that he was the most eye-catching among all of them. Thus, Xiao Yao strolled over and raised his eyebrows at the person who was putting away the sword. "Third brother, why are you here?" Xiao Ho handed the sword to the subordinate behind him and said innocently, "I'm afraid that you'll mess things up." Xiao Yao was speechless. Was he that unreliable? Xiao Ho chuckled and turned around. If he was not worried about Xiao Yao's safety, he would not have come. Xiao Yao rubbed his chin. "Humph, you don't mean what you say. But this brother is really something. I'm going back to eat. I'll leave this mess to you guys to clean up." With that, he strode forward and caught up with the person in front of him. He hooked his arm around the person's shoulder and laughed loudly, leaving the dumbfounded crowd behind. Unfortunately, Xiao Yao's wish to go back to eat was once again dashed. This was because Turan appeared in front of them and bowed to invite them into the palace. Thus, Xiao Yao once again cried out in grief. An hour later, the two brothers stood in front of the imperial study and reported the day's situation. After hearing that Xiao Ran had been executed, Xiao Su's eyes moved slightly, but he eventually regained his composure. "It seems that this matter can come to an end." Xiao Ho nodded. "From the looks of it, as long as the remnants are all cleaned up." Xiao Su agreed. "Then," he said, "you guys have worked hard. It doesn't matter if it's hard or not. The point is that I haven't even eaten breakfast and lunch." Xiao Yao rubbed his stomach and looked at him sadly. Xiao Su could not help but smile. He rubbed his brows and said, "You only know how to eat. The imperial kitchen has already prepared a table of good wine and dishes. You guys can go." Xiao Ho really did not want to be associated with this good-for-nothing brother of his, but since his imperial brother had already spoken, he could only reluctantly eat with him. After the two of them left, they brushed past Wu Lin who entered the palace. The latter bowed to the two of them before entering. Xiao Yao poked the person beside him and asked, "Now that Wu Lin has returned, does it mean that fourth brother's troops outside the city have been successfully taken down?" "I don't know either, but it should be close," Xiao Ho said truthfully. Xiao Yao rubbed his chin and looked puzzled. If it's true, Wu Lin's efficiency is too fast. Xiao Ho was slightly stunned. Then, he chuckled. Maybe the other party did not even think of resisting. Third brother, what do you mean? Why do I feel like I'm confused? Xiao Yao could not understand. Unfortunately, when he turned his head, Wu Lin was already far away from him. He cursed in his heart and immediately chased after him. Chapter 1490. The two of them joked around as they walked into a palace. Of course, it should be said that Xiao Yao was the one who was joking around. When the two of them entered the palace, the first thing Xiao Yao saw was a table full of exquisite dishes, and he almost pounced on them. Xiao Ho, on the other hand, saw his imperial sister-in-law, Chu Qingyan, sitting at the side with a smile on her face. Xiao Ho stopped Xiao Yao, whose eyes were only filled with dishes, and bowed towards her. This subject brother pays his respects to imperial sister-in-law. Xiao Yao also saw his sister-in-law, who was as beautiful as a flower, and inwardly scolded himself for not having good eyesight. He almost embarrassed himself, but he also quickly smiled and bowed. This subject brother pays his respects to imperial sister-in-law. Chu Qingyan smiled. We're all family, so there's no need to be so polite. Come and sit. Your imperial brother still has matters to attend to, so let's eat first. The two brothers looked at each other. They didn't expect that this meal wasn't for them, but for the eldest brother and his wife. It looked more like a family feast. The two of them were delighted and sat down naturally. Speaking of which, this is the first time we're eating at the same table. Without those annoying people around, the feeling is really different. Xiao Yao was someone who didn't care about trifles. Since they were all family, he didn't restrict himself and did as he pleased. As he spoke, he filled his brother's cup with wine and poured tea for his sister-in-law. After all, she was pregnant, and drinking wine was harmful to the baby. Chu Qingyan liked Xiao Yao's personality very much. She raised her cup and toasted the two of them. During this period of time, your imperial brother has enslaved you quite a bit. I know it's been hard on you. Today, I'll take care of your food, drink, and accommodation. Eat to your heart's content, aren't you afraid of going broke from eating? Imperial sister-in-law is still the best. These words make this subject brother feel at ease. The hardships of these days are worth it. Xiao Yao was delighted. Xiao Ho was also amused by Chu Qingyan's words. Thank you for your hospitality, imperial sister-in-law. The three of them clinked their cups. Oh right, imperial sister-in-law, you're already pregnant with my little nephew. Did imperial brother say when the wedding will be held? Xiao Yao shouted, speaking whatever was on his mind. However, Xiao Ho looked at him disapprovingly and stuffed a drumstick into his mouth. Eat your food. Stop talking nonsense. Chu Qingyan giggled. She knew that Xiao Ho thought that Xiao Yao had violated a taboo, so he stopped him like this. Xiao Yao also knew that he had misspoken, so he quickly gnawed on the drumstick. She waved her hand carelessly and said, as a family, there's no need to be so afraid of everything. It's because your imperial brother hasn't sorted out the matters of the imperial court yet, and he hasn't ascended the throne yet. It's also a bit difficult for me to hold a wedding while I'm pregnant, so after some discussion, we decided to simply wait for him to register before holding the wedding. At that time, I may have to trouble the two of you to help. Xiao Ho nodded. If there's anything we can help with, please don't hesitate to ask, royal sister-in-law. Chu Qingyan smiled. All right. Sister-in-law, please don't stand on ceremony. Of course. After 3 rounds of wine, Xiao Su finally arrived. Those who are late will have to punish themselves with 3 cups of wine. Xiao Yao had drunk some wine, so his temper was completely unrestrained. He didn't treat this imperial brother of his as respectfully as he usually did, so he immediately handed over a cup. Xiao Su was also straightforward, downing the 3 cups in one gulp. Xiao Ho smiled satisfactorily at the side. Delightful. Today, let's not talk about official matters. Let's just talk about romance. Xiao Yao stood up. His face was slightly red, and his eyes were shining. He seemed to be in high spirits. Everyone agreed. All right, then I'll talk about some of the interesting things that I've encountered in the past few years. Xiao Yao placed his chopsticks on the table and began to tell his story. I'll have to start from 3 years ago. On that dark and windy day, it was the time to kill and rob. I was riding on a horse alone on a narrow, winding path. Xiao Yao was talking about the time he met a bandit on the road. He described the bandit in a very exaggerated manner, then highlighted how he had handsomely beaten the bandit into a sorry state, and how he had finally swaggered off heroically. Although the content of the story was very simple, it couldn't withstand this idiot's lively narration. It was very lively, and everyone couldn't help but laugh. Xiao Yao felt a great sense of accomplishment, so he continued to tell one story after another. What everyone cared about was not the content, but the simple warmth at this moment. Come, everything is in the wine. The lively atmosphere didn't dissipate for a long time. The sound of laughter could be heard outside the palace, and it gave this cold palace a hint of human warmth. Chu Qingyan suddenly felt a little touched. In the past, it was always the big ice cube that shouldered those matters alone. Now that there were brothers working together, she really couldn't help but want to cry. After sending off the 2 brothers, Xiao Su turned around and hugged her, asking with concern, "What's wrong?" After being together for so long, he could acutely sense any fluctuation in her emotions. Chu Qingyan looked up at him with teary eyes. In the past, you were alone. Now, there are so many people accompanying you. I'm so happy. Xiao Su was slightly startled, then hugged her even tighter. His voice was moved. Yes, how lucky I am to have waited until today. We have to be good in the future. Chu Qingyan hugged him tightly and said softly. Xiao Ho and Xiao Yao didn't want to stay in the palace that was full of unhappy memories, so they walked out of the palace door with their arms around each other's shoulders. How about drinking at my house? Xiao Yao suggested with a bright smile. Xiao Ho glanced at him. You drank so much tonight, and you still haven't had enough? Xiao Yao said aggrievedly and innocently. Royal sister-in-law was there. Royal brother was worried that I would go crazy after drinking too much, saying that it would affect the prenatal education. In the end, he didn't let anyone serve me any wine. I didn't have any fun drinking at all. At that time, Xiao Ho was talking to Chu Qingyan and didn't notice this. When he heard this, he raised his eyebrows and looked at him. This guy had drunk a lot, and he still wanted to drink more. Xiao Yao thought that he had persuaded him, so he continued, do you still remember the grape wine last time? I'm still reluctant to drink the last jar. How about we finish it today? Look at how good Big Brother is to you. Xiao Ho glanced at him, then unhurriedly removed his hand from his shoulder. He shook his clothes and smoothed out the creases on his sleeves, then slowly said, I've told you before, Imperial Brother once gave me 10 jars of grape wine. Xiao Yao was dumbfounded. Ah. Xiao Ho casually threw him a sentence. I saw that you were too happy last time, so I couldn't bear to say it to hurt you. Xiao Yao reacted and said through gritted teeth, you black-hearted person. You didn't have to say it. To think that I was so good to you. Xiao Ho shrugged. The truth is always cruel. When Xiao Ho turned around, Xiao Yao bared his fangs and brandished his claws at his back. He muttered, both of them are sly foxes. It's a pity that a big white sheep like me was fooled by them. I really lost both myself and the wine. Sob sob, baby's heart is bitter, but baby won't say it. When Xiao Ho heard the words that he deliberately said to himself, the corners of his mouth turned up, revealing his good mood. He said, let's go to my house to drink. The person who was muttering stopped, turned around, and immediately chased after him. Wait for me. It was the same for Xiao Ho and Xiao Yao. They were no longer alone. Yes, it was dark and windy at night, and it was time to drink. Chapter 1491. At the lowest level of the imperial prison, on the spacious path, one could almost hear the sound of the cold wind blowing. Xiao Ran sat in the only cell. As far as his eyes could see, there was a clean and tidy bed, exquisite pastries on the table, and hot tea. As a prisoner, to be able to receive such treatment, it had to be said that the superior was benevolent. This was his eldest brother. Although he did not recognize him and did not treat him well, he had never treated him cruelly. A layer of guilt filled his heart. His eyes were slightly red. Before he could think of anything else, he heard footsteps from afar. In this quiet space, it was very abrupt. He knew who had come. When he was young, every time he heard these familiar footsteps, he would be very happy. Because the eldest brother he admired the most had come. The chains clanged and the cell door was opened. Xiao Su's figure appeared in front of him. Long time no see, eldest brother. He tried to raise the corner of his mouth, revealing a sincere smile of reunion after a long separation. The person in front of him was down and out, but he didn't appear to be in a difficult situation. He was in a difficult situation, but he didn't appear to be dispirited. Only then did Xiao Su's expression soften. He stepped into the cell and sat down in front of him. Xiao Ran smiled and sat down in front of him. He poured him a cup of tea. In here, there's nothing to entertain. Imperial brother, please bear with it. No harm. Xiao Su took the teacup. He did not even frown as he drank a mouthful before putting it down. Seeing him treat him so unguarded, not suspecting whether he had poisoned him or not, Xiao Ran found a long-lost warmth. He shook his hands and drank a mouthful of hot tea before putting the cup down. Imperial brother, if there's anything you want to know, I can tell you. This sentence was a disguised admission of weakness. Compared to being interrogated by torture, he was more willing to tell his imperial brother everything. Xiao Su looked at him deeply and asked an unimportant question, why did you bring so few people with you when you raided the execution site yesterday? With your ability, you wouldn't have been defeated so easily. Didn't you stop them outside the city? Xiao Ran blinked. I want to hear the truth, Xiao Su said calmly. Xiao Ran choked and finally gave up struggling. He said in a low voice, I know this is a trap set by my brother. No matter how many people come, it will be useless. So in order to avoid too many casualties and to avoid hurting the people, that's why. He seemed to have thought of something and paused for a moment before continuing, Imperial brother, you said that we don't have the right to trample on other people's lives. In the past, I was ignorant and did many wrong things. I didn't care about the lives of the people. I won't be so foolish again. I'm glad that you think that way. Xiao Su originally thought that he would see Xiao Ran, who was covered in thorns like before, but he didn't expect him to change so much. He raised his eyebrows slightly. He still remembered that before they parted, Xiao Ran's hostility was very strong. He didn't know what Xiao Ran had experienced during their parting that caused such a big change. However, Xiao Su was still very satisfied to see him admit his mistake. I'm very happy that my brother can come to see me. He was really very happy. Xiao Su saw that his eyes were red and sighed softly. Useless. Yes, I'm useless. Growing up, I can't tell right from wrong, good from evil. All the books that I've read have been eaten by dogs. He rubbed his eyes and smiled, but he choked with sobs. Xiao Su looked at his pained expression and pursed his lips. In the end, he couldn't bear it. He raised his hand and placed it on Xiao Ran's head. His voice was no longer so stern. You did wrong, but you shouldn't bear all the responsibility for all of this. An elder brother is like a father. I didn't teach you well. That warm and familiar heat on his head made Xiao Ran's uneasy heart finally collapse. He covered his face with both hands, his shoulders trembling. At this moment, tears welled up in his eyes. He didn't need to hold back anymore. A man doesn't cry easily, only when he's deeply hurt. Xiao Su couldn't help but sigh deeply at Xiao Ran's suppressed sobs. His hand moved to Xiao Ran's back and gently patted him like how he usually comforted the little guy. After venting, Xiao Ran felt that the big stone in his heart had finally disappeared. He said with tears in his eyes, "Brother, I didn't keep my original heart. My original heart was destroyed. In the end, I became the kind of person that I hate." He learned so many skills, but in the end, he turned his sword against his family and friends. He betrayed them, and in the end, he was betrayed by everyone. He deserved it. Facing this younger brother that he had personally brought up, Xiao Su's feelings were also complicated. No one knew that things would end up like this. Hearing Xiao Ran's sincere repentance, his heart was also moved. He patted Xiao Ran's head. "It's all in the past. It's great that you know your mistakes and can change." However, these words didn't stop Xiao Ran from mourning. Instead, it allowed him to vent freely. Xiao Su quietly accompanied him like this. After a while, Xiao Ran sorted out his emotions. He knew that crying at this age was especially embarrassing. He used his sleeve to casually wipe his eyes, then raised his head. "Brother, how do you plan to deal with me?" Xiao Su withdrew his hand. "If I let you return to the imperial court, it'll be difficult to explain to the officials and the common people. I'll first give you a fief. You can settle down there and live your life." Xiao Ran's eyes trembled when he heard this. "Brother, you're still so soft-hearted. No matter what happens, the blood in my body can't be cut off," Xiao Su said indifferently. Xiao Ran shook his head, but didn't want to discuss this topic. He was silent for a while. After hesitating for a while, he finally gathered his courage and asked, "I heard that Qing Yan is pregnant. Is she doing well?" Before Xiao Su could answer, Xiao Ran hurriedly explained, "I don't mean anything else. I'm just asking." Xiao Su's gaze lingered on him for a while before he said, "She's doing very well now. The child is also doing very well." Hearing this, Xiao Ran sighed in relief. Then, he cautiously said, "Brother, can I see her? I promise I'll speak to her from afar." Towards the end, his voice gradually became softer. Only when one truly cared, would one become petty and low. Xiao Su could empathize with this feeling because he had experienced it before. "Do you have anything else you want to say?" Xiao Ran thought that he didn't want him to see Qing Yan. He knew that he didn't have the right to ask for anything else, and he didn't have the face to see her. His voice instantly fell. "No." With that, he heard the sound of his brother standing up. He couldn't help but lower his head even more. He already didn't have the face to see him in this life. Xiao Su walked to the door and said, "I'll pass on your words to Ian. Take care of yourself." With that, he heard the door close and the sound of footsteps gradually fading away. Xiao Ran looked up in shock. His gaze passed through the wooden cell and looked at the upright and imposing figure. Tears quickly gathered in his eyes. "My brother, my dearest brother, even now, you're still willing to tolerate me. I really, really regret it." Drip, tears fell. Chapter 1492. When Xiao Su entered the hall, Chu Qingyan was inspecting the baby's clothes, hat, and socks that she had just sewn. When she saw him enter, she immediately waved at him. "Come over and take a look. Aren't the baby's clothes cute?" The little fellow's warm and soft brows and big bright eyes immediately dispelled the coldness he brought out from the dungeon. He walked up and took the small clothes she handed over. It was so small that it couldn't even cover his hands completely. He felt that it was extremely novel. "Will the baby be able to wear it?" he asked foolishly. It was rare to see her big ice block being so silly. It really proved the saying that a smart person can be stupid for a while. However, she wouldn't dampen his enthusiasm. She pointed at the clothes in his hands and explained patiently, "The baby weighs a few kilograms when he's just born. This size is enough for him to wear. Some babies are born prematurely or malnourished in the womb, so it's not surprising." Xiao Su's expression immediately became serious when he heard that. His gaze was fixed on the little fellow's bulging belly that was half a ball. Chu Qingyan noticed that something was wrong with him after folding a few clothes. She patted his hand and asked, "What's wrong?" He said nervously, I'm worried that the baby will be malnourished. It seems like I have to call the Imperial Kitchen's chef over and remind him. Also, Ethereal sighed. Before Xiao Su could finish, his mouth was covered by a soft hand. He looked at her in confusion and innocence. He didn't say anything wrong. The little fellow rolled her eyes at him and said, "You basically have to call the Imperial chefs over a few times every day to remind them. Now, you've made everyone in the Imperial Kitchen nervous, and their legs turn to jelly whenever they see you. You should stop tormenting them and let them cook for me in peace." Also, Ethereal sighed, "Don't be so paranoid every time there's something wrong. Last time, I ate too much last time and didn't have an appetite for the next meal, so you dragged her over. Now, as soon as she left, you dragged her over again because the baby kicked me. You should know that Ethereal has lost a lot of weight today, and I've gained a lot of weight. Just thinking about it makes me feel sorry for her." She reprimanded him for a long time before letting go and freeing him. "So, don't worry. Don't worry. Let nature take its course." She thought that he would repent after saying so much. She did not expect him to say something like this. "Alright, then I'll reduce the number of times I look for the royal chef. 3 times a day will do. After all, I need to know what you want to eat for every meal." Regarding Ethereal, it's true that I didn't consider everything, but checking your pulse once a day is inevitable. However, if there's nothing else, I won't summon him. If Ethereal were here, he would be crying tears of joy on the inside. How would he know what it meant to be okay? The little princess burped. She ate too little for this meal and couldn't sleep. Her legs were cramping. "Master, you will think that the sky is falling down. Baby's heart is bitter." Chu Qingyan sighed deeply in her heart. It seemed that nothing she said could change the ice cube. She could only wait for the baby to be born, and then everyone would be free. Therefore, those who were innocently affected would have to suffer for a few more months. Chu Qingyan observed a moment of silence for them in her heart. At this time, Chu Qingyan changed the topic and did not bicker with him. She found a new topic. "I remember that you didn't have anything to do this morning. Why did you take so long to come back?" Xiao Su's mind was still on the baby's nutrition. Hearing this, he was stunned. Then he recalled the person he saw 2 hours ago. His heart stirred. He reached out to take her hand and briefly told her what he had discussed with Xiao Ran in the prison. Finally, he passed on Xiao Ran's request. "If you want to see him, I'll send someone to arrange it." When she heard that Xiao Ran had already repented, Chu Qingyan still felt a bit resentful that he did not live up to her expectations. This silly child. Xiao Su stroked her head. After taking a deep breath, Chu Qingyan tilted her head and looked at him. Her gaze was subtle and unblinking. Even though Xiao Su was the god of war who could remain unmoved in the face of thousands of soldiers and horses, he could not sit still when faced with his wife's unwavering gaze. He raised his hand to touch her face and pinch her chin. He asked, "What are you thinking about?" Chu Qingyan raised her eyebrows. She hid the smile in her eyes and said seriously, "Although Xiao Ran is your younger brother, he once coveted your wife. You're so assured to let me go?" Xiao Su chuckled softly. He leaned over and kissed her lips. He sucked and teased her lightly, making her dizzy. After they separated, she touched her burning face and waited for him in annoyance. She was talking about being serious, but he blocked her at the slightest disagreement. How indecent. She heard him laugh and say, "Everything is under my control. He can't do anything. Moreover, I believe that you have something to say to him." How confident. But she liked this kind of arrogance. "Alright, then there's no time like the present. Let's do it today." She rubbed against his palm and turned into a clingy little kitten. Xiao Su stroked her face. He leaned over again and covered her with his body. Everyone in the hall was very perceptive and retreated. The wind was still cold, but where there was sun, it would still make people feel warm all over. Xiao Su sent Chu Qingyan to the entrance of a courtyard. He squeezed her palm and said, "Call me if you need anything. I will always be by your side." So worried? Then don't give in to me. Wasn't he very confident before? Why did he change his attitude in the blink of an eye? She teased him in amusement. You have to forgive a man for saying one thing and meaning another. Xiaosu openly admitted, without hiding anything. It was true that he was a 9-foot-tall man, but he did not mind letting his beloved know his love. Chu Qingyan's eyes softened as she bashfully looked at him. She liked this kind of big ice cube. He never hid his feelings for her and was proud of spoiling her. I know. I don't know what's going on, but you just lit up the skill of saying sweet nothings. I can't stand it at all. Although she said that, she was very happy. Before entering the courtyard, she turned her head and said awkwardly, you also have to get used to a woman saying one thing and meaning another. With that, she shyly slipped away with the help of Jasper and Xining. After Xiaosu understood her words, he held his forehead and could not help but laugh. The courtyard that Xiaosu arranged, whether it was lighting or ventilation, was very good. The leaves rustled and the shadows of the bamboos overlapped. It was a good place to chat. Xiao Ran was brought out of the sky prison an hour ago. At this time, he was sitting on a stone chair, looking around. Soon after, he sighed faintly. His eldest brother really loved Qing Yan to the bone. He was afraid that the imperial prison would be too dark and cold, which was why he chose this place. He must have spent a lot of manpower to bring her here. But since his eldest brother was so good to her, he was relieved. At this time, he heard a series of footsteps approaching. His heart suddenly became chaotic. Chapter 1493. Before he saw her, he was full of anticipation. When she came before him, he was timid and stiff all over. It was probably because he was more timid when he was close to her. When the footsteps were close enough, Xiao Ran slowly turned around. His eyes were full of anticipation and fear. When his gaze fell on that beautiful, picturesque face, the corners of his mouth pulled up, revealing a smile. Hi, Qing Yan, long time no see. The sunlight shone on the two of them, as if drawing a large circle of light, separating them from the present time. In a trance, they returned to the pure and innocent time 6 years ago. She was the fearless transmigrator girl. And he was the boy who bullied others with his power and was taught a lesson by her. Youth was ignorant, youth was pure, youth was eternal beauty. Indeed, long time no see. You seem to have lost a lot of weight. Is the food bad? You're still growing, it's not good to be picky about food. How could Chu Qingyan not feel his uneasiness and nervousness? After sighing in her heart, she took the initiative to dissolve the awkwardness. The intimate voice of the beautiful woman in front of him, without any resentment, brought him back from his nostalgia. His rapid heartbeat finally calmed down. He touched his head, as if he had returned to his youthful self. He said embarrassedly, "It's just that my appetite hasn't been very good, but I've been eating well recently." Chu Qingyan's eyes heated up. She looked away, but her tone was somewhat unhappy. What's wrong? Old friend, we haven't seen each other for a long time. Aren't you going to treat me to a cup of tea? Xiao Ran only then realized that the two of them had been standing since they met. He didn't mind, but Qing Yan was already pregnant. He hurriedly said, "Sit, I was so happy to see you that I forgot to greet you." He personally poured a cup of hot water for her. For some reason, when he poured the water, his hand kept trembling, spilling a lot of water on the table. However, Chu Qingyan pretended not to see it, but she felt a little sad. "I hope you don't mind my lack of hospitality. In the future." He scratched his head and smiled. "Let's not talk about the future. I'm relieved to see that you're happy now." Chu Qingyan glared at him. "Don't worry. Don't think that everything will be fine just because I have your eldest brother. When I give birth to the baby, you'll be its uncle. You'll have to prepare gifts for it when it's 1 month old and 1 year old. In the future, you'll have to teach it some skills so that no one can bully it." Xiao Ran kept laughing as he listened. He laughed so hard that his eyes turned red. Qing Yan, I'm so happy that you can say that. I'm so happy that I'm about to go crazy, he said sincerely. She pursed her lips and the smile on her lips turned into a soft sigh. Xiao Ran, I'm very happy too. I'm really happy that you've changed for the better and know that you've done wrong. Xiao Ran slowly stopped laughing. He lowered his eyebrows and smiled bitterly. If only I'd known earlier and stopped before I made a mistake. Perhaps it would have been better. Chu Qingyan was slightly stunned. At that moment, she didn't know what to say. Xiao Ran saw the pity in her eyes. His heart ached slightly. He tried to smile and asked, "You're pregnant, so let's not talk about those unhappy things. I heard that pregnancy is very difficult. Can you still bear it?" Speaking of the baby, her expression became gentle. She lowered her head and stroked her belly. She smiled and said, "Pregnancy is indeed very difficult, but my baby is quite obedient. Other than the initial torment, it doesn't bother me at all. I'm very glad. It seems that it'll be an obedient child in the future." "That's great." Xiao Ran's gaze fell on her belly. He was a little surprised and a little emotional. It was really amazing. A human's pregnancy was simply an amazing project. That's hard to say. Some babies are extremely obedient in the womb, and once they're born, they'll throw all their weight around. As for me, I'm not asking for much. As long as it's born safely, I'll be happy. Chu Qingyan shook her head and smiled. Thus, the two of them talked about the baby for a while. Then, they talked about the past. Just like that, time passed little by little under the warm sun and gentle breeze. Xiao Ran never thought that he and Qingyan would be able to sit together calmly one day and talk about the past and the present. When his extravagant wish became a reality, he was already very satisfied. As they chatted, Chu Qingyan looked a little tired. "Are you tired?" Xiao Ran asked with concern. Chu Qingyan smiled helplessly. "It's probably time to catch up on sleep." Ever since her body became heavy, she had to take a nap in the afternoon. Hearing this, Xiao Ran became nervous. "Then hurry back. More rest is good for the baby in your belly." Chu Qingyan looked at his appearance and couldn't help but be amused. Good, good, good. Look at how nervous you are. I'll come see you later." Xiao Ran wanted to reach out to help her up, but in the end, he hesitated and pulled his hand back. His gaze was fixed on the two palace maids supporting her. After Chu Qingyan stood still, she found that Xiao Ran was staring at her in a daze. She waved her hand in front of his face and said with a smile, "Why are you in a daze?" He wasn't in a daze. He wanted to engrave the voice and smile of the person in front of him into his memory. That way, no matter where he went, he wouldn't forget her. "Sorry." "What?" Chu Qingyan was shocked by his sudden words. That I shouldn't have been distracted." He smiled embarrassedly. Only then did Chu Qingyan relax her back. She said unconcernedly, "It's fine. I'm going back. I'll come see you next time." "Okay." Chu Qingyan turned and walked back the way she came. For some reason, she felt that something was wrong. Her heart clenched and felt uncomfortable. She wanted to go back and have a good chat with him, but when she thought about how she had already said goodbye, she gave up. Forget it, she'll come again next time. Only, she didn't know that there wouldn't be a next time. Many times, some people left without warning, just like when they first arrived. The smile in Xiao Ran's eyes slowly faded as he watched the gentle and slender figure slowly disappear into the small path through the flowers and willows. He was born in the imperial family and grew up in the imperial family. He was destined to face the deceit of others. Once he fell into it, he would never be able to turn it around. "Qingyan, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that our youthful days were covered in dust. I'm sorry that your sincere friendship for me changed it. I'm sorry for everything I did after that," if I could turn back time, I would definitely hide my love for you in my heart and not spread it out under the sun. Just like today, we talked so happily. It turned out that when you really cared about someone and wanted to give her happiness, it wasn't necessarily to possess her, but to sincerely wish her the happiness she wanted. How I wanted to go back to 6 years ago when we first met, to get to know you again, to accompany you, and to wish you well. He looked at the exquisite pastries on the table, some books that she had prepared for him because she was afraid that he would be bored, and some brushes, ink, paper, and inkstone. She was just like that. She was so considerate. When she was hurt, in the end, because she was soft-hearted, she repaid the evil with kindness. This was the person he liked. Unfortunately, there was no future. Xiao Ran tried his best to smile. For the last time, I'll send you off with a smile. Chapter 1494. I also want to atone for my sins with merits, and I also want to realize that I'm on the right path, but the phrase, repent and be saved, doesn't suit me. I've already fallen too deep, and if I want to turn back, there will be people who won't stop trying to drag me down to hell. Xiao Ran. When Chu Qingyan walked out of the courtyard, Xiao Su was already waiting outside. She quickly walked over, and Xiao Su immediately reached out to hold her hand, then frowned. Why is your hand so cold? As he spoke, he wrapped her hand in his palm to warm her. Chu Qingyan replied absent-mindedly, it should be because the wind is a little strong today. As soon as she finished speaking, Xiao Su had already taken off his cloak and draped it over her shoulders. He hugged her shoulders and pulled her into his embrace, and just like that, he led her forward. Looks like I'll have to let you wear thicker clothes when you go out in the future. Warmth instantly enveloped her body, and Chu Qingyan came back to her senses. She didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Then we'll really become a ball. Then we still have to keep it warm. Xiao Su said firmly. Chu Qingyan laughed and shook her head, then let him be. What were you thinking about just now? Why are you so engrossed in your thoughts? Xiao Su asked as he tightened his grip on her clothes as they walked forward. Chu Qingyan still didn't think of hiding it from him, but she didn't think of hiding it. I chatted a lot with Xiao Ran, and I could tell that he had already repented. But I don't know why, but when I left the courtyard, I felt very uneasy. Maybe Xiao Ran was too calm. It was different from what I imagined. Xiao Su focused and thought for a while. He's really more sensible this time. Maybe it's because he's really repented. That's a good thing, you don't have to worry too much. Other than that, he couldn't find a reason to answer. Chu Qingyan nodded. Maybe I'm thinking too much. At this moment, the baby in her stomach kicked her, successfully diverting her attention. If you're worried about anything, I'll arrange for you to see him later. Chu Qingyan glanced at him. My big ice cube is so generous. Xiao Su laughed. What are you thinking? I think he just wants to be a good little brother now. That's true. After the two sides looked at each other, they couldn't help but laugh. The black figure held the petite girl in his arms and slowly walked back. The sun was warm and the shadows of the trees were swaying. It was as if he could see the end of time from them. Near evening, Chu Qingyan woke up. After drinking a bowl of tonic soup and preparing to get up, a piece of news exploded in the air like thunder. Xiao Ran was gone. What do you mean by gone? Chu Qingyan was so shocked that she sat up from the couch. Her eyes were wide open, as if she hadn't heard what the other party had said. Jean Xian bowed and frowned. After His Highness returned to the prison, he took poison. By the time the guards found him, he was already dead. He had already gone. This sentence was like an invisible thread that tightened her heart bit by bit. Just 2 hours ago, she was still happily chatting with him, from the past to the present. He even laughed at her for being as thin as a bamboo pole when she was young. Just like that, that fair and clean young man disappeared from her life just like that. At this moment, Xiao Su, who had received the news, rushed back. When he appeared in the inner hall, Chu Qingyan seemed to have grabbed onto a life-saving straw. She didn't even bother to put on her shoes as she jumped down from the couch and walked towards him. She grabbed onto his clothes, her eyes filled with tears. They told me that Xiao Ran is dead. This can't be true, right? Xiao Su lowered his eyes, sorrow in his eyes. The news is correct. He has indeed left. Tears gushed out of her eyes. She hugged him and cried out in grief. Xiao Su picked her up and walked towards the bed. Then, he held her in his arms and silently accompanied her. After his subordinate came to report, he immediately rushed to the prison. When he reached the prison cell, he found that he couldn't even take a step forward. When he left, he was very peaceful. There was no pain. Chu Qingyan's tears were like a broken string of pearls. Hearing this, she choked out, "Big Ice Cube, can you understand that feeling? The person who was clearly talking and laughing with you just a moment ago is gone in the blink of an eye. When he's gone, it's not that he's no longer in front of you, it's that you'll never see him again. Big Ice Cube, I'm so sad." Xiao Su stroked her back, his voice low. "This feeling, how can I not feel the same? When I first came to the capital, I already knew him. And Dongting, they were all friends I've known since childhood. But now, one's life is unknown, and the other is separated forever. I feel that the heavens are so cruel." Seeing that the little fellow was crying so hard that she was about to faint, Xiao Su couldn't bear it. He patted her back and comforted her. Perhaps to Xiao Ran, this can truly free him. She raised her head and reached out to touch his face. She said helplessly and sadly, "Big Ice Cube, no matter what happens in the future, you can't leave me." He covered her hand and said seriously and firmly, "I won't. I'll always be by your side and our child's side." After getting his promise, Chu Qingyan leaned into his arms again. Tears flowed silently, and she whispered, "We have to be good, good, life was always moving and always losing. Sometimes, the person who said that he would accompany you to see the scenery would disappear the moment you turned around. So, while you could still reach out and hear the other party's voice, you had to cherish them well. Whether it was love, resentment, hatred, or pain, you would rather he or she live well in front of you than only be able to find traces of them in your memories." 2 days later, someone delivered several boxes, saying that they were ordered by Xiao Ran. Chu Qingyan asked someone to open them. There were all kinds of gifts neatly arranged inside. Rattles, butterflies, kites, rotating lanterns, beautiful bracelets, beautiful stones, they were packed up one by one, and each one was written with elegant words. For his nephew's full moon gift, first birthday gift, second birthday gift, coming of age gift, first birthday gift, because he wasn't sure if it was a boy or a girl, he prepared a gift for each. She still remembered that day when she deliberately told him that she wanted to prepare a gift for her child's birthday. She didn't expect that he had already prepared it before he was arrested. Last year, when they met for the first time after 5 years apart, he also prepared a box of gifts for her to make up for the missing years of her birthday. Imagining the scene of him preparing these gifts with apologetic and expectant eyes, Chu Qingyan hugged those gifts and closed her eyes to cry silently. It turned out that before he robbed the execution ground, he had already lost his attachment to this mortal world. Even though he knew that it was an inescapable trap, he still stepped into it without any regrets. "Qingyan, you are my purest warmth in this world. You are my last memory of this mortal world. But how could I, who was filthy, dare to hold on to you, who was as clean as before? You are my most beautiful memory, my last trace of salvation in this world. But I've already missed you in this lifetime. I don't want to stay by your side with such a face. If there is an afterlife, I will live well and be a useful person. I will always bless you with peace and joy. My dear girl, goodbye." Chapter 1495. Xiao Su stood alone in front of the palace on a night with a bright moon and sparse stars. He raised his head and looked at the night sky, his figure appearing slightly lonely. At this moment, the two of them appeared behind him. "I didn't think that he would choose this method." Xiao Su did not look at them, but said in a desolate voice. Xiao Ran's choice is actually a form of relief for him. He probably felt that he had sinned too much and could not wash away his sins, so he chose to leave. Xiao Ho's voice sounded. It was already good enough that he did not go crazy after he repented with too much self-blame. That day, when he saw Xiao Ran, he felt that this child was no longer the young man who was easily manipulated. There was a sense of carefreeness between his brows. He had finally grown up. But the price of this growth was too high. I thought he had let it go. A bitter smile appeared on Xiao Su's face. Imperial father was killed by his imperial mother. It's possible that he can't live with that in his heart. Moreover, even if he did, imperial concubine Yu and the others, the remnants of the Fu family, would not allow him to live freely. Xiao Ho thought of his subordinate's report that Consort Yu and the rest had escaped from the siege. He thought that this battle would continue. At this time, Xiao Yao's exasperated voice continued, but this guy is too irresponsible. He left just like that and didn't even say goodbye to us. At least, he should have had a drink with us. He must be holding a grudge because I didn't say goodbye to him at the execution ground. This guy is too narrow-minded. Xiao Ho laughed, but as he laughed, he couldn't laugh anymore. These brothers of his had never been able to gather together. Xiao Su's eyebrows were indifferent, and his eyes were as dark as the night. At this moment, Xiao Yao put one hand on each of their shoulders and said loudly, "Let's go and drink. There's wine today, let's drink today, let's worry tomorrow." Xiao Su and Xiao Ho looked at each other, and the sorrow in their eyes disappeared. "Let's get second brother drunk tonight." Agreed. Xiao Yao stomped his feet. "Good. You two old foxes. But I'm not afraid of you. I won't get drunk even after 1,000 cups. You'll know once you try. Third brother is right. Bring it on. I'm not afraid of you." On the eaves of the tallest palace in the imperial palace, the glazed tiles shone faintly under the moonlight. It was originally a solemn and dignified place, but at this moment, several wine jars were rolling around, pressing against the glazed tiles as they slid past. In the quiet night, the sound of glass shattering could be heard. "Drink, drink, I can still drink." Xiao Yao's face was flushed red as he lay on the roof, muttering unconsciously. From time to time, he would raise his hand to make a toast. There were two figures sitting at the side. One of them was a peerless beauty with an outstanding figure. The other had a snow-white complexion with picturesque features. They were both dragons and phoenixes among men, causing others to forget about them. "Brother, your face isn't actually disfigured, is it?" Xiao Ho looked at the person beside him. His gentle eyes glowed. On the surface, he looked doubtful, but in fact, he was certain. In this kind of night, all the probing of seniority had disappeared. What was left was an honest and cordial feeling. By now, Xiao Su no longer felt that this was his bottom line. He made a sound of agreement and then pulled off his mask. Then, he casually picked up a wine jar and raised his head to drink. His movements were as smooth as flowing water, not caring that the wine spilled out and wet his clothes. Xiao Su didn't care, but that didn't mean that the people around him didn't care. It was just a side profile, but Xiao Ho felt as if he had seen a snowy mountain of flowers, a spring breeze caressing his face. The cold and gentle intertwined, so compatible. The black clothes were about to merge into one with the night, but that peerless face was even more breathtaking. It was like a painting of a flourishing age, slowly unfolding in front of your eyes. You saw the tranquility of the mountains, the brightness of the water, the coldness of the winter's snow, and the elegance of the green bamboo. He just sat there without saying a word, and you felt as if you had experienced the most beautiful side of 1,000 rivers and mountains. Xiao Su didn't notice that the people around him were shocked to the point of being speechless, so he calmly explained, "Appearance is nothing more than skin. What truly convinces people is still your ability. Wearing a mask can save you a lot of trouble." Xiao Ho came back to his senses and couldn't help but smile. Indeed, it can save you a lot of trouble. Who would have thought that such a valiant war god would have an appearance even more outstanding than a peerless beauty? Xiao Su turned to look at him. Where will you go in the future? Wine was a good thing. It could unknowingly shorten the distance between people and open up the conversation. Xiao Ho chuckled with a blank look. I don't know either. Xiao Su nodded. It seems that I can continue to assign tasks to you, so that you won't be lost in life. Seeing that this person could make torturing people sound so dignified, Xiao Ho couldn't help but agree with some of Xiao Yao's words. When interacting with First Brother, one had to be wary of any traps he might set. How can Prince Yi, who is second only to one person and above tens of thousands, be lost? Eldest brother, you must be joking. Xiao Ho said with a smile. Xiao Su smiled faintly, took a sip of wine, and handed the wine jar to the person beside him. Then he said faintly, people live not only for love, but also for many other things. You are still young and have a lot of time to explore meaningful things. Don't indulge in the past. Live well. They were both people who had lost their fathers. The eldest brother was like a father. He could only reluctantly bear this responsibility and persuade him. Xiao Ho had just taken the wine jar and was about to take a sip when he heard these words. His body froze. When the cold wind blew, he came back to his senses and continued to drink. He said casually, Are you afraid that I will follow in Xiao Ran's footsteps? Xiao Su didn't answer, but his calm gaze had already made a lot of things clear. Xiao Ho chuckled and put the wine jar aside. He leaned back and put his hands behind his head. His eyes were tinged with drunkenness. Imperial brother, don't worry. Maybe I once had that thought, but I won't anymore. He had already found something strange about the day when the little rascal fell off the cliff. So as long as there was a glimmer of hope, he wouldn't let it go. Xiao Su raised his eyebrows, as if trying to determine whether what he said was true or false. Finally, he took the wine jar, drank a few mouthfuls, and casually wiped it. That's good. Xiao Ho smiled when he heard this. Hearing Xiao Su's murmurs, he saw Xiao Yao quietly drinking alone from the corner of his eye. At this moment, his heart was incomparably peaceful. He didn't expect to feel a bit of warmth in this icy palace. It was truly surprising, but also delightful. After a while, Xiao Su put his mask back on. He pointed at the people who were already asleep and said lightly to the subordinates who bowed in front of him, Send the two princes back home. Xiao Lai received the order. After accompanying his brothers, it was time to go home and accompany his wife and children. Xiao Su slowly walked toward Yen Su Palace. Outside the capital, a mournful voice sounded like a ghost in the dark night. It was a sorrowful cry of hatred that came from the bones. Ranner, my Ranner, how can you bear to let your mother send you off? Xiao Su, Chu Qingyan, you two sluts, it was you who killed my son. I will definitely make you pay with your blood. Ha 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 ha, go to hell. Chapter 1496. The Liang family was exiled, and the Fu family was executed. The two major families of Sichuan entered the world with glorious achievements, but in the end, they ended up with infamy. People couldn't help but sigh. Xiao Su wiped out the families of the two major treacherous officials and punished hundreds of officials who had committed the most heinous crimes. Using such an iron-blooded method to pave the way for him to ascend the throne was undoubtedly a declaration to the world that under his rule, corrupt officials were not allowed to run amok. It showed his determination to rule the world with clarity. The matter of the Sichuan emperor's posthumous edict had spread like wildfire. Although the common people were able to distinguish right from wrong and weren't deceived, on the day of the ascension, the retired emperor, who had not appeared for a long time, appeared at the ceremony. As a witness, he testified for Xiao Su that the edict was real and not a forgery. Because he was the only one who stayed in the palace until the death of the Sichuan emperor, and he was the most senior member of the imperial family, the former emperor who had abdicated the throne. No one's words were more authoritative than his. Thus, the rumor was dispelled. Having just experienced the invasion of an enemy country, the homeland was still being rebuilt. Xiao Su ordered the ceremonial officials to keep everything simple. Thus, the ascension ceremony followed the etiquette passed down from generation to generation, but there was no excessive extravagance. This made the common people respect the new emperor even more. It was the country's blessing and the common people's good fortune to have an emperor who was so considerate of the common people. In front of the palace, the retired emperor and Xiao Su stood at the highest point of the Sichuan. Su, your father is too muddle-headed. You can't learn from him in the future. The retired emperor sighed, his words carrying exhaustion. Don't worry, imperial grandfather. Grandson will learn from the mistakes of others. Xiao Su bowed to express his position. The retired emperor nodded in satisfaction. His eyes were slightly moist as he patted his shoulder. Among all of you, grandfather thinks the most highly of you. In the past, you didn't want to be bound, so grandfather didn't want to tie you down here. But I didn't expect that after going around in circles, the one who would inherit the throne would still be you. Perhaps all of this is fate. Xiao Su replied faintly. Yes, it's all fate. The retired emperor shook his head. Xiao Ran, that child. Sigh, let's not talk about it anymore. Let bygones be bygones. Let bygones be bygones. As he spoke, the retired emperor's gaze landed on the white stone steps that led upwards. You are now in a high position and have stepped on the highest point. In the future, every step you take must be firm and steady. You must avoid being bewitched. You must walk steadily. Grandson will remember imperial grandfather's teachings. Xiao Su bowed respectfully. The retired emperor put his hands behind his back, his face still serious. In the future, I'll leave the Sichuan to you. If you're tired, you can ask your two younger brothers to help you, lest they have nothing to do. Xiao Yao, we all have the same father. Grandpa, you can't be like this. Xiao Ho, I agree wholeheartedly. Xiao Su smiled faintly. Grandson naturally knows how to make good use of people. I won't let them be too idle. The Emperor Emeritus stroked his beard in satisfaction. This child is worth teaching. The two foxes, one old and one young, were laughing sinisterly. The two brothers, who were still in the imperial court, sneezed at the same time. Xiao Yao rubbed his nose. This was bad. He had a bad premonition of being targeted by a wolf. On the other hand, Xiao Ho was frowning. It seemed like he had to go out to avoid trouble. Then you should go and do your work. Grandpa will go and see granddaughter-in-law. I left in a hurry last time and didn't have the chance to properly greet my great-grandson. As he spoke, the retired emperor was like a gust of wind, coming and going as he pleased. Xiao Su only had time to catch the shadow of the white hair swinging around the corner from the corner of his eyes. He couldn't help but smile. In the imperial family, imperial grandfather was probably the only one who lived the most thoroughly. Today was a great day, but because she was going to give birth in half a month, the big ice cube didn't allow her to leave the hall. Thus, she could only stand at the door and listen to the deafening three cheers of "Long live" in the distance. The corners of her mouth slightly curled up. However, at this moment, Chu Qingyan heard a snicker, followed by a familiar voice. What a big bowl of dog food. Su, doesn't seem to know how to be romantic. I didn't expect him to amaze the world with a single brilliant feat. This palace's name is simply too torturous for dogs. Chu Qingyan's eyes lit up when she heard the voice. She hurriedly walked out. When she saw the person standing there looking at the plaque, she smiled from the bottom of her heart and called out, "Imperial grandfather, you're back." The news of the Emperor Emeritus's return hadn't spread, so Chu Qingyan didn't receive news of his return to the palace. The Emperor Emeritus originally wanted to put on airs, but when he saw her pot-bellied appearance, his aloof appearance was instantly thrown to the horizon. He hurriedly called out to the people beside him. Hurry, hurry, hurry. Properly support your master. If she bumps into anything, I'll hold all of you responsible. Chu Qingyan was amused by his nervous appearance. Indeed, birds of a feather flocked together. Her family's big ice cube was the same. It's windy outside, so don't catch a cold. Come, my good granddaughter-in-law. Let's talk inside the palace. The Emperor Emeritus said kindly. Chu Qingyan looked at the lush greenery outside and the chirping birds outside. A drop of cold sweat trickled down her forehead. It was already spring, so how was it cold? However, in order not to disappoint the elderly's concern, Chu Qingyan still obediently entered the palace. It looks like you're about to reach full term. The Emperor Emeritus immediately inquired as soon as he sat down. Chu Qingyan smiled and nodded. In another half a month, I'll be 10 months old. Good. All these years, you've done so much for Su-er. Now, you've even given him a child. Your contributions can't go unnoticed. Grandfather is very grateful to you. The Emperor Emeritus was almost in tears. The corners of Chu Qingyan's mouth twitched. She was used to seeing the Emperor Emeritus's childish side, so she was somewhat not used to seeing him like this. Grandfather, you're too polite. This is what I should do. No, child. That's because you don't know what's going on inside. The Emperor Emeritus sighed softly. After thinking about it, there was nothing to hide. The dust has already settled. Su-er, that brat, has narrowly escaped death. Grandfather will tell you the truth about the bestowment of marriage back then. Chu Qingyan was stunned. What the hell? The truth about the bestowment of marriage? At this time, the Emperor Emeritus had already continued speaking. Su-er's fate has been full of misfortune since he was young. I went to Hugua Temple to perform a divination for him. The abbot at that time was the current Su Jian's master and also my good friend. He told me that Su-er would not live past 20 years old. When I heard this, I was immediately struck by lightning. The heavens are jealous of heroic talents. Su-er is the smartest child I've seen in so many years. He's so well-behaved and sensible that he's lovable. Chu Qingyan's heart immediately hung in her throat. Although the big ice cube had already passed the calamity, she still couldn't help but feel anxious. What happened after that? After that, I begged my good friend to give me a solution to help Su-er pass the calamity. My good friend had no choice but to perform another divination. Then, he said that there was a way to reverse the wheel of fate and make fate go awry. An alien star would descend into the world. Perhaps this would change Shishuan's fate, but the reincarnated alien star would solve Su-er's calamity. So, I'm the reincarnated woman that you brought by reversing time and space? The Emperor Emeritus nodded solemnly. Chu Qingyan felt that everything was a fantasy. Chapter 1497. Back then, she had slept in the dressing room for a while, but when she woke up, she found that time and space had changed and she had shrunk into a little doll. It turned out that all of this was because of this reason. She had thought of many reasons why she had inexplicably transmigrated. Now that she saw the Emperor Emeritus's grateful expression, Chu Qingyan was no longer conflicted and felt relieved. In fact, she should be thanking the Emperor Emeritus. If it weren't for him, she wouldn't have met the big ice cube, and she wouldn't have experienced so many things and had so many friends. Life was like this. There were gains and losses. She had lost everything in the present world, but at the same time, she had gained everything in the present. People couldn't be too greedy and couldn't be too attached to the past. Otherwise, it would be too late to regret when it was lost. Grandfather, I'm very happy to be able to resolve His Highness's death. She was really happy that her arrival could protect him. The Emperor Emeritus was extremely gratified. Granddaughter-in-law, you're a good child. Only you can take Su-er away from loneliness. You're the only warmth he has left in this life. Good, after telling you about this, grandfather's heart is also relieved. Servants, serve me delicious food. I haven't had a proper meal all the way here. Now, I want to eat and drink well. After being serious for less than 3 seconds, the Emperor Emeritus had already broken his facade and lightly patted the table to order the palace servants. How could the palace servants dare to offend this great Buddha? They immediately rushed to the imperial kitchen to pass on the order. Chu Qingyan giggled. Looking at the Emperor Emeritus who was fiddling with the pastries, it was as if they had returned to 6 years ago when they had just left the capital. Although that period of time was the calm before the storm, everyone still had a good time. The imperial kitchen moved quickly. They first served a few cold dishes, then hot dishes were quickly followed. This taste doesn't seem like it was made by that little girl. Where is she? Let her show me a few skills. I want to see if she has improved after these few years. The Emperor Emeritus wouldn't admit that it was because he was thinking about her cooking even in his dreams. Chu Qingyan paused in her action of drinking tea. It was as if that delicate little girl in yellow appeared in front of her eyes. She smiled and bowed in front of her. She's no longer here. No longer here. Then call her back. Given the way Su dotes on you now, even if you wanted the stars in the sky, he would really pluck a few for you. Retired Emperor said disapprovingly. Chu Qingyan laughed bitterly. If she was still alive, even if she had to go to the ends of the earth, I would have asked His Highness to dig her out. Unfortunately, the retired emperor finally understood what she meant when she said she wasn't here. He couldn't help but stare blankly. She was just a little girl. How could she not be here? At this time, Xining, who was standing at the side, was afraid that the retired emperor would say something else, so she stepped forward and briefly told him about Huang Yi's matter. After hearing this, the retired emperor heaved a heavy sigh. Fate always plays tricks on people. Huang Yi is like this, and Xiao Ran is also like this. But for them, leaving is a kind of relief. What a pity for the two children. Chu Qingyan's heart faintly throbbed in pain. Yes, they are relieved, but they left behind pain for the people who are still alive. For example, them and Turin. Seeing his granddaughter-in-law's desolate expression, the retired emperor suddenly realized that he had brought up a very bad topic. Thinking of Su, that crazy wife protector, he was afraid that he would be implicated and blamed, so he immediately picked up his chopsticks and put some food in her bowl. Granddaughter-in-law, eat something. Don't think about those things. You're about to give birth. It's not good to affect the baby. If you really miss those people, wait until your lifespan is over and you'll meet them in the underworld. Do you believe in ghosts and spirits, Imperial Grandfather? Chu Qingyan was also aware of her body's condition, so she forced herself to restrain her emotions and asked curiously. It's not important whether there are ghosts and spirits or not. What's important is that people should have a thought. What if it comes true? The retired emperor winked at her. Chu Qingyan thought that it made sense. Thus, the two of them, an old urchin and a pregnant woman, began to immerse themselves in eating. In a short while, the cups and plates were in a mess. The two of them held their stomachs and laughed contentedly. One must enjoy life to the fullest. Don't let the golden goblet face the moon empty. By the time Xiao Su returned, the old urchin had already slipped away. Facing the mess on the table, Xiao Su helplessly face-palmed. Chu Qingyan asked the servants to change the dishes on the table. She knew that he had been busy the whole day and definitely didn't eat much. Originally, there was a palace banquet on the day of the new emperor's ascension, but Xiao Su found it troublesome and didn't want to waste time on unimportant eating, drinking, and playing. Thus, he opened his mouth and cancelled the banquet. This made the civil and military officials happy and sad. It was a good thing that the new emperor knew how to save money, but if he didn't like to socialize, how could they have fun in the future? However, Xiao Su generally refused to listen to the thoughts of these officials. He was so busy that he didn't have much time to accompany his wife. His heart was bitter. These people didn't work properly and still wanted to have fun. No way. Because his wife had already eaten, Xiao Su quickly filled his stomach. When it was time, he helped his wife take a walk in the imperial garden. Chu Qingyan came from the modern realm. Although she hadn't been pregnant before, she had seen pigs run even though she hadn't eaten pork before. She knew that walking around during pregnancy would be beneficial for the delivery. Thus, she would go out for a walk when she had nothing to do. Xiao Su would accompany her whenever he had time, and the two of them would take a walk after meals at a fixed time. Time passes so quickly. It's gone in the blink of an eye. Chu Qingyan sighed with emotion as she looked at the flowers in the garden swaying in the wind. That's right. It's a pity that I couldn't accompany you properly while you were pregnant. Xiao Su's voice faintly carried a hint of self-blame. Chu Qingyan patted his hand and comforted, "What's wrong with that? The baby will be proud to have a responsible father like you." Xiao Su's face brightened as he was comforted by his wife. The commoners probably wouldn't have imagined that the new emperor wasn't holding a banquet to celebrate on the first night of his ascension, but was taking a walk with his wife and child. Their eyeballs would probably fall out of their sockets. She found it funny just thinking about it. Xiao Su said disapprovingly, "Warming the Kong bed with the wife and child is what every normal man should think." Moreover, if they knew, they would be even more relieved, because the ruler of the Gu family would truly think of them. That's right. You're the best emperor since the beginning of time. Chu Qingyan winked at him teasingly. Xiao Su raised his eyebrows, and the hand holding her tightened slightly. Now that your wings have hardened, you dare to tease me? When you give birth to the baby, I'll let you know what it means to be the best husband. Now that she had a child, she wouldn't have good days in the future when the goods in her stomach were unloaded. A good woman wouldn't suffer losses in the future. Thus, she quickly begged for mercy, "I was wrong. I won't dare to do it again." However, a certain someone glanced at her coldly, then turned his head away, meaning, "Sorry, it's too late. Isn't it just abstinence for a few months? How stingy." Chapter 1498. Xiao Su had only ascended the throne for a few days, but some officials had already begun to have crooked thoughts. "Your Majesty, the harem is empty. It's time to open the doors and take in the harem." Xiao Su glanced at the official who spoke with a cold gaze. "Lord Lu, do you need us to add some people to your harem?" Lord Lu's old face turned red. He was already over 60 years old. Why would he need women? "Your Majesty, Lord Lu means that you are busy with political affairs and need someone to take care of you." Xiao Su said indifferently. "Lord Li, we remember that your daughter is about to reach marriageable age. Why don't we choose a son-in-law for you? What do you think of Marquis Ban's youngest son?" Everyone knew that Marquis Ban's youngest son had dementia since he was young. He couldn't even take care of himself. Lord Li almost fainted from fright. He hurriedly shrank back, afraid that he would be an eyesore to the new emperor and implicate his daughter. "It seems that everyone is very interested in our family matters. What else is there? Continue." Xiao Su had a calm expression. However, after the two events just now, no one dared to pluck the hair from the tiger's head. They originally thought that the harem was deserted and that they could get a share of the profits. Now, it seemed that they couldn't even touch the edges. Because they didn't want to suddenly have a woman in their harem or their son or daughter to be randomly matched. Thus, after Xiao Su finished speaking, everyone looked at the sky, the ground, and the pillars. They didn't dare to say anything else. When Xiao Su saw this, he raised his eyebrows and released his dragon's might. The entire palace was enveloped in his might. No one dared to even breathe. "My beloved officials, please focus on political affairs in the future. There is no need for you to worry about our family matters. You are in your position and you are in charge of your own affairs. If there is any negligence, we will not be courteous to you. Court is dismissed." With a wave of his dragon robe, that handsome and tall figure disappeared from everyone's eyes. Only when the pressure disappeared did the officials dare to take a deep breath. The new emperor's aura was truly too terrifying. Everyone looked at each other. Since the new emperor said that it was a family matter, it wouldn't be good for them to interfere. Because Xiao Ho and Xiao Yao had been sent to do many things by their brother, they could only bid farewell to their former carefree and unrestrained days and bitterly report to the court every day. At this moment, the two of them looked at each other and walked in the direction their brother had left. "Oh, There's actually someone who doesn't want to enjoy the blessings of having multiple wives. Since ancient times, I've never seen an emperor refute his courtiers like this. Don't you think so, third brother? Second brother is right. The two of them appeared in the imperial study. Xiao Su didn't even raise his head. Haven't you seen it now? I can only say that your knowledge is too shallow. The two of them looked at each other and shrugged. It seemed that after being together for a long time, imperial brother and imperial sister-in-law's speaking skills had improved. Imperial brother, are you really not going to hold a mass selection of concubines? How many girls in the Sichuan would be heartbroken by this idea of yours? Xiao Yao leaned against a pillar and asked in a joking manner. In the past, they avoided me like the plague. Now, their hearts are truly too cheap. He remembered that when imperial father had wanted to bestow marriage to him, many courtiers in the court had either said that their daughters were unbearable or that they were sick in order to not be chosen. It had caused quite a commotion for a while. However, he didn't care about this at all. It was just that when Xiao Yao mentioned it, he responded with a few words. Seeing that the two of them were here to watch a good show, Xiao Su stopped writing and crossed his arms as he coldly sized up the two of them. You're so concerned about my family's matters. Do you want to marry yourselves? That's fine. Just tell me, which girl have you taken a fancy to? This older brother will make the decision for you. If there isn't anyone, this older brother doesn't mind helping you pick a few. When these words entered their ears, they felt like a cold wind was blowing. Thinking of what their imperial brother had said to the courtiers in the court, the two of them took a step back. Xiao Ho immediately expressed his stance. This younger brother doesn't have such thoughts and will not interfere with imperial brother's harem. So, imperial brother can rest assured. Xiao Ya wasn't willing to fall behind. This younger brother was just joking. You already have imperial sister-in-law, such a good wife that all the women in the world are inferior to. Those mediocre women don't even have the qualifications to carry imperial sister-in-law's shoes. Xiao Su raised his eyebrows and took back his words. Ayin is about to give birth. I won't allow any accidents to happen. So, keep a close eye on the court these days. I don't want to see what happened today again. Seeing that their imperial brother had already changed his tone, the two of them knew that their imperial brother had taken this matter seriously. They didn't decline and agreed. So, the three of them started to talk about other things. This matter was over just like that. However, no one would have thought that after stabilizing the court, something unexpected would happen among the people. A rumor, like the spring rain, seeped into the people and slowly eroded them. It was also like snowflakes that spread all of a sudden. Some people said that Sichuan hadn't experienced any disasters for decades. However, in recent years, there had been many major events, such as the invasion of Nansang country, the snowstorm in the north, the flood in the south, the alliance of the three countries, etc. Some people said that there was a demon causing mischief. Who was that demon? Some people also said that nothing happened 16 years ago. However, ever since a baby girl was born, everything started to become chaotic. Then who was this baby girl? Some people said that the Chu family's fifth miss, the former King of England's Princess Consort, was currently in the imperial palace. No way, she was the new emperor's most cherished person. How is that not possible? Look at the birth characters. A monk who had attained the Tao said that when this girl was born, it coincided with the reincarnation of an evil spirit. That evil spirit did not survive the thunder tribulation, so it possessed this baby girl. Therefore, after that, Xian began to fall into turmoil because of this evil spirit. If this demon girl isn't eliminated, there will be endless disasters in the future, and the heavens will be angry and the people will be resentful. These rumors were very methodical. Even Chu Qingyan's birth characters were taken out. People couldn't help but pay attention to them. In addition, Sichuan had indeed been plagued with endless disasters these past few years. Whether it was natural or man-made, it far exceeded the sum of all the disasters that had occurred in the past. Holding the mentality that it was better to believe it than not to believe it, this rumor snowballed all of a sudden, growing bigger and bigger. At first, these rumors were only spread in small towns, but after the peach blossoms bloomed in March, the rumors began to spread to the large towns in the capital. Originally, it didn't make much of a fuss, but now, it had become the topic of discussion in the streets. In an ordinary residence, an old woman with a withered face sat at the head seat in the main hall. Her once delicate skin was now covered in wrinkles. Even the most gorgeous silk and satin couldn't hide her emaciated figure. No one would have thought that this old woman was Consort Yu, whose name had once shaken the harem, Fu Yu. At this moment, she was looking gloomily at the person in front of her, whose figure and appearance were hidden under a black robe. Senior Marshal brother, it's all thanks to you that we were able to ruin Chu Qingyan's reputation these past few days. Junior Marshal sister's words are too serious. Dong Ting Fan replied. Consort Yu looked at the sky outside the window and smiled coldly. This time, I want to make Chu Qingyan infamous. Everyone will have the right to kill her, and she'll die in her womb. Chapter 1499. As everyone's attention was focused on Chu Qingyan's impending delivery, they did not pay much attention to what was going on outside. Xiao Lai cavalry had sent news to Xiao Su earlier, but he was not in the mood to deal with it, so he kept it at the bottom. Now, these rumors had finally reached his ears. Smack! Xiao Su threw the memorials that had been sent to him onto the table, causing the entire imperial study to shake. Xiao Yao glanced at one of the memorials that was scattered on the floor. There were a few words on it that were very eye-catching. Seductive troublemaker. He could not help but twitch his mouth. These people really dared to say such things. Third brother, what do you think? Xiao Yao saw that his imperial brother was in a fit of anger and could not help but poke the person beside him. Xiao Ho frowned slightly and looked away from the memorials. He then cupped his hands towards the person sitting at the table. This matter has caused a huge commotion. The outside world is abuzz with the news. Originally, it was the people who were making a fuss. Now, even the ministers are involved. The situation is not very good. Xiao Yao snorted. It must be because Imperial Brother rejected the Imperial concubine selection and was shocked by Imperial Brother's taunts. They must be feeling indignant and are taking this opportunity to put pressure on Imperial Brother. Since ancient times, the Emperor was the sky of the country. No one dared to disobey him. However, once the Emperor deviated from the normal path and did not go in the direction the courtiers expected, they would form an invisible force to force the Emperor to act. Now, Chu Qingyan's matter was a knife that they had been waiting to use to threaten the Emperor. Xiao Su rubbed his tired eyes. Recently, he did not know if it was because the little fellow was about to give birth. She did not sleep well at night and the frequency of her cramps was increasing. Often in the middle of the night, he would have to get up to massage her calves. Originally, she wanted to sleep in a separate bed from him. She was worried that too many things would affect his rest. But especially at this time, he could not let her bear this pain alone. So what if it was hard for a period of time? But now that such a thing had happened at such a critical time, he really wanted to kill someone. It was not that it would affect him in any way, but he was worried that the little fellow's health would be affected by these things. Ethereal had already said that it was best not to let her have any emotional fluctuations during this period of time, otherwise it would lead to difficulties in giving birth. Third brother, go and find out who's behind this. Xiao Su's voice was as cold as ice. Xiao Ho immediately replied, yes, Your Majesty. No matter what, you can't let your sister-in-law know about this. You have to keep your mouths shut. You can't leak any information. Faced with their brother's warning, the two of them finally realized the severity of the matter. It seemed that the person behind this wasn't just targeting the imperial court. The two of them solemnly complied. It seems that we shouldn't hang around in front of imperial sister-in-law for the next 2 days, just to be on the safe side. Xiao Yao covered his mouth knowingly. Xiao Ho glanced at him. That seems to be the case. Harem, Yen Su Palace. Chu Qingyan was half lying on the bed, looking lazy. Originally, her belly wasn't so big. At that time, Big Ice Cube was still worried about whether she would give birth to a baby the size of a kitten. Unexpectedly, 3 months ago, her belly began to expand like a balloon. Now, it was as if she was carrying a big ball, and her body was getting heavier and heavier. She once suspected that the baby was competing with Big Ice Cube. "Didn't you say that I was a kitten? I'll show you how big I am." A chubby baby with its hands on its waist groaned and rolled its eyes. After she imagined this scene, she couldn't help but laugh. Seeing that she was in a good mood, Xining immediately had someone bring fresh fruit. Those fruits were cut into small pieces and inserted with toothpicks for her convenience. After the fruit plate was brought up, Xining began to order the imperial kitchen to bring up warm tonic soup. Now, Xining had become the most powerful female attendant in the entire harem, because there was only one master in the harem. Sichuan Emperor's previous concubines had basically been sent away. Even if they stayed in the palace until they grew old, they wouldn't come to Chu Qingyan, who was doted on by the emperor. They hoped that she wouldn't remember them and that they could stay in the palace until they grew old. Empress Liang, after getting what she wanted from the Liang family, shut herself in and didn't come out. Presumably, she didn't want to be an eyesore to her son and daughter-in-law. Although Chu Qingyan was in charge of the entire harem, there were very few people in the harem now, so she didn't have to spend much effort to manage it. Moreover, she was pregnant, so Xiao Su wouldn't be willing to let her work too hard. "Xining, you lass, can't you see that I'm already so fat? You still don't give up and want to nourish me." Xining knew that her master was looking for fun, so she was willing to be scolded by her master. Then, she began to repeat those words, "Master, you also know that the little master is about to be born. You have to eat more and save more energy. When the time comes, the birth will be smooth. Isn't this what Lord Ethereal said?" As she spoke, Xining innocently wiped the non-existent tears from the corners of her eyes, looking as if her good intentions were not rewarded. This servant knows that this servant's words have no weight. When His Majesty comes back, one sentence from him is worth 3 sentences from this servant. Then, this servant should wait for His Majesty to come back and lecture you. Chu Qingyan was amused. "You lass, you only know how to use this to stop me." "Fine, fine, fine, I'll eat, alright." As soon as she finished speaking, Xining eagerly handed over the toothpick. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but shake her head in amusement. "It's only been a few months, and you're already so eloquent. Let's see if Jean Xian can stand you in the future." "He dares." Xining harumphed. Chu Qingyan's eyes lit up slightly. It seemed that the relationship between these two had taken a qualitative leap without her knowledge. "Master, don't worry. Your appearance and figure haven't changed at all because of this. You're still so beautiful and moving, so just focus on eating." Xining winked mischievously. Chu Qingyan smiled. "You're the only one with a sweet mouth." At this time, Ethereal walked in with a few midwives. These midwives were selected by Xiao Su half a year ago under Ethereal's orders. They were experienced midwives who had delivered babies for officials. They had been raised in the palace all this time. Now that they were about to give birth, Ethereal brought them over to familiarize them. Chu Qingyan had also seen these midwives before. Their faces were all familiar. At this time, Ethereal opened her medicine chest and prepared a hand pillow to take her pulse as usual. And because the midwives in front of them had a noble status, if they could complete this task well, their future prospects would be boundless. Thus, they began to compete with each other to talk about things to pay attention to during childbirth, as well as some words to curry favor. Chu Qingyan knew that childbirth in ancient times was like passing through the gates of hell, so she also calmed down and listened. As they spoke, they opened up other topics. "Nyang Nyang looks so beautiful. This old servant's mouth is too stupid. I don't know how to describe it." One of the midwives was eagerly trying to curry favor. Another midwife continued, "Isn't there a saying that a smile that can cause the downfall of a country is also capable of causing the downfall of a city?" At this time, another voice sounded, "That's right, ah. Nyang Nyang has a benevolent appearance and a kind heart." This old servant was thinking, how could someone be so blind as to say that Nyang Nyang is a fox? Ethereal, who was preparing to take her little Wang Fei's pulse, trembled. She was about to open her mouth to stop them, but it was already too late. "What did you say? Say it again." Chapter 1500. Only now did the midwife realize that she had said something disgraceful and hurriedly knelt down. "Nyang Nyang, forgive me. This old one misspoke. Please forgive me." Ethereal wanted to slap herself. If she had known this would happen, she would have said a few words before entering the hall. Now she had caused such a disaster. "Young Princess Fei, it's nothing. Don't listen to other people's nonsense. This subordinate will have people take these ignorant people away. They won't be an eyesore to you," Ethereal said, and immediately prepared to take them away. However, Ethereal's attempt to cover up made Chu Qingyan suspicious. "Wait." At these words, Ethereal could only helplessly stop. "Young Princess Fei, do you have any other orders?" Chu Qingyan squinted her eyes slightly, and her smile sent chills down one's spine. "Kong Ling, you haven't checked my pulse and you're leaving already? It's not your style to do things halfway." So, as she spoke, Chu Qingyan gave a look to Xining. Xining immediately understood and took the other midwives away, leaving only one. Seeing this, Ethereal knew it was too late. Young Princess Fei was so smart and knew the small details. It seemed this matter couldn't be concealed. Chu Qingyan's gaze swept over the trembling midwife and chuckled softly, "Today, I'm in a good mood. Come, madam, please tell me about the outside world. Otherwise, I'll be bored out of my wits if I stay in the palace." The midwife who had said the wrong thing was surnamed Lu. People called her Lu Midwife. Lu Midwife quickly smiled apologetically, "What Nyang Nyang wants to know, this old one will tell you everything." "That's good." Chu Qingyan changed her position, one hand lightly holding the edge of the bed. Her smile deepened, "Tell me about the matter you just mentioned." Cold sweat instantly slid down Lu Midwife's forehead. An hour later, only Chu Qingyan, Xining, Jasper, and Ethereal were left in the Yen Su Palace. Chu Qingyan's gaze fell on the people in front of her. Her voice was low as she said, "You didn't even tell me that such a big thing had happened." Xining was originally angry, but after hearing this, she immediately felt wronged and said, "Mistress, this servant really doesn't know anything." At the side, Jasper knelt down heavily, her eyes filled with self-reproach. This subordinate knew about this but did not report it. "Please punish me, master." Xining was surprised. "You actually knew and didn't tell me?" Jasper sighed. "You're too stupid. Telling you is the same as telling master." Chu Qingyan turned to Ethereal. "So you know about it too?" Ethereal lamented in its heart. What the hell is going on? But it still nodded with a bitter smile. "Master didn't let us tell you. We were afraid that it would affect your body and the fetus." Chu Qingyan was depressed for a moment. Although she knew that the big ice cube was doing it for her own good, it really didn't feel good to be kept in the dark like this. She still wanted to say something, but her abdomen suddenly throbbed. She took a deep breath and couldn't help but lean back. Xining was the first to notice that something was wrong. She quickly supported her and said anxiously, "Mistress, what's wrong?" "Lord Ethereal, come and see mistress." In an instant, the entire Yen Su Palace was in chaos. When Xiao Su received the news, he immediately threw down the memorial and all the courtiers in the main hall and rushed to Yen Su Palace without stopping. Although it was only a few steps, he had already used his qinggong in a panic and left Turin, Huling, and the others far behind him. Turin and Turin saw the shock in each other's eyes. It was rare to see their masters so panicked. The last time was because of the young princess consort. They hoped that nothing would happen to the young princess consort this time. Otherwise, looking at their master's posture, it seemed like he was going to destroy the world. When everyone arrived at Yen Su Palace, Ethereal was still giving first aid to Chu Qingyan. Everyone was blocked outside and began to stomp their feet anxiously. At this time, no one dared to stop Xiao Su. He was exuding a murderous aura from head to toe. "How is it?" Ethereal had just finished performing acupuncture when she heard a cold voice behind her. It didn't take a guess to know who it was. "It's under control for the time being. She'll be fine after resting for half a day." It was really hard to imagine. If she wasn't treated in time, the fetus in the young princess consort's belly would be in danger. Ethereal wiped the cold sweat on his face and let out a long sigh of relief. Xiao Su didn't feel relieved because of this. His gaze swept to Ethereal's pale face. Needless to say, he knew how dangerous the little guy's situation was just now. What the hell is going on? Why did Ian suddenly become emotionally unstable? After seeing the little guy, Xiao Su sat in the front hall and glanced at the people kneeling on the ground with a dignified expression. It was clearly spring in April, but the people present felt as if they had fallen into the cold winter and couldn't help but shiver. Ethereal raised his head and took the lead to explain the ins and outs of everything. In the end, he blamed himself and said, "It's this subordinate's fault for not keeping an eye on the people below. This subordinate doesn't dare to ask for master's forgiveness. Ethereal, you've always been reliable. That's why I trusted you with Ian's safety. I didn't expect you to be so muddle-headed one day." Xiao Su's gaze was cold. Ethereal lowered his head, his eyes red. This subordinate knows his mistake. Xiao Su narrowed his eyes. "Do you still remember the punishment for not doing your job properly?" Ethereal nodded. "I know. This subordinate will go to the torture hall to receive the punishment." Turin immediately stood up. "Master, the matter has already reached this point. It's no time to find out who's responsible. Besides, the young princess consort can't be separated from Ethereal." Xiao Su rubbed his forehead. He knew that this was a critical moment. He waved his hand to let Ethereal stand up. "There won't be a next time." Ethereal nodded. "This subordinate knows." At this time, Hualing flew into the hall and walked to the front of the emperor. "Master, this subordinate went to investigate that Lu Mama just now, but she's already dead." Everyone was shocked. Xiao Su sneered. "Investigate the palace thoroughly. I'd rather take 3,000 than miss a single person." Turin and Hualing immediately left to carry out the order. In an instant, everyone could smell the invisible tension in the air. Everyone had already left. Xiao Su's hand gripped the chair's handle tightly, his entire body emitting a vicious aura. The rumors among the people, the midwife in the harem, all of these were linked together to point at his little fellow. He wasn't afraid if they were targeting him. But when it came to his little fellow, he couldn't bear to let her suffer any grievances. Xiao Su looked up and his gaze landed on Ethereal. Ethereal met his master's somewhat vacant gaze and hurriedly stepped forward. "What orders does master have?" "Ethereal, this time, no matter what, please protect Ian's life." Xiao Su's voice was no longer as cold as before. It was as if he was just an ordinary husband asking a doctor to treat his wife. Ethereal's expression turned cold. "Master, even if this subordinate has to risk this life, this subordinate will ensure that the young princess consort and her child are safe." "Good." Just as Xiao Su agreed, Xining quickly ran in front of him and cheerfully said, "Your Majesty, Master is awake." As soon as she finished speaking, a gust of wind blew in front of her and the seat was already empty. Xining rubbed her eyes, feeling greatly surprised. Hualing smiled and said, "They've already gone far away." Xining then hurriedly ran back. Chapter 1501. Chu Qingyan opened her eyes groggily, and the first thing she saw was that familiar pair of worried eyes. She pursed her lips and asked, "What happened to me?" Xiao Su hurriedly said, "Ethereal said that your emotions fluctuated too much and your blood supply was insufficient, causing you to faint. Are you still feeling unwell?" She raised her hand to rub her temples, and her muddled mind gradually cleared up. Everything that had happened earlier flashed past her eyes. She wrinkled her nose and pushed his outstretched hand away. I'm not feeling well. Go away. I don't want to see you right now. The person who was smiling at him earlier suddenly changed her expression and wanted to chase him out. Xiao Su felt wronged. Logically speaking, it was the people outside who were spreading rumors, and it had nothing to do with him. He held her hand, his heart aching for her when she felt upset again. He wished he could hold her in his hands and dote on her. Ayan, what's wrong with you? Are you feeling upset? I'll call Ethereal for you. Her hand was held by him and she could not break free. Chu Qingyan simply gave up. She turned her back and did not want to bother with him. It's no use calling Ethereal. I was angered by you. I'm so angry that my liver hurts. Xiao Su felt even more wronged now. But if his wife said that he was wrong, then he was wrong. He sincerely admitted his mistake. Ayan, I was wrong. He was still so cold earlier, but in the blink of an eye, he changed into a different person in front of his wife. The majestic king suddenly became his wife's slave. This scene was too beautiful to look at. What did you do wrong? Chu Qingyan turned around and looked at him coldly. Xiao Su choked. How would he know? He was just taking the opportunity to coax her. Seeing him like this, she knew that he was just brushing her off. She snorted coldly and withdrew her hand from his. Then she turned around and faced him with the back of her head. Xiao Su's current mood could no longer be described as speechless and choking. Ayan, tell me, how did I make you angry? Tell me, I'll definitely change. Xiao Su was worried about her health and the child in her belly. He softened his tone and didn't look like an emperor at all. Chu Qingyan planned to give him the cold shoulder for a while so that he could reflect on himself. But after thinking about it, he might not know what he did wrong. At that time, he would be the one sulking. After a while, Xiao Su saw his little wife mercifully turn around and pay attention to him. Big ice block, rumors are flying everywhere outside. Why didn't you tell me? Do you think that my tolerance is low and I can't share the burden with you? Or do you think I'm just a pawn that can be manipulated by anyone? Chu Qingyan threw these words directly at him. Xiao Su finally understood the crux of the problem. He held her hand and looked at her, his eyes full of love. He said, "You're at a critical juncture now. I don't want these unimportant things to affect you, so I didn't let anyone tell you. You're always like this. Every time something happens, you bear it alone and don't want to tell me. What is husband and wife? It means to suffer together and bear difficulties together. Or do you not take me seriously at all? Do you want a harem of 3,000 beauties? Fine, we're not married yet anyway. We'll marry separately in the future and have nothing to do with each other." Chu Qingyan knew that he was doing it for her own good, but this was a matter of principle. She really wasn't a chick and didn't need others to shield her from the wind and rain. Now that she was choking on her anger, if she didn't vent it out, it would hurt her even more. It was just that she didn't choose her words carefully in her anger. After she finished speaking, she regretted her harsh words. But now that she was angry and put on airs, she couldn't take it back, so she might as well just let it be. Xiao Su accepted the first few words because his wife was right. But after hearing the latter part, Xiao Su's face instantly darkened. On the other side, Chu Qingyan nagged, "You're always like this. After the incident, I'll scold you and you'll admit that you won't do it again. But you always say one thing in public and another behind my back. You accept it humbly and never change." After she finished speaking, she turned her head and saw that there was something wrong with his gaze. She felt a little guilty, but she was the one in the right. At this moment, Xiao Su's gaze was locked on her and he stared at her coldly. "Ayan, I was wrong in this matter, but you can't say such heartless words. What do you mean by marrying separately and having nothing to do with each other? Ayan, my heart is in so much pain right now. When you were unconscious, I was so worried. Now that you're awake, you say such things. Can't you see my feelings for you? It's over, this matter is serious. Chu Qingyan swallowed a mouthful of water. She thought about whether she should take this opportunity to settle the score with him or raise her hands to appease him first. There was no comparison between the two, so she chose the latter without hesitation. She reached out to grab his finger and shook it. I was wrong. I said the wrong thing. I shouldn't have said that. Xiao Su took a deep breath. He wanted to lecture her again, but seeing how submissive she was, he couldn't bear to say anything harsh. He reached out to hold her shoulders and said in a tight voice, Ayan, no matter how unhappy we are in the future, even if you're angry, you can't always say that we're not related to each other. Because that's a kind of erasure of our feelings. Okay. If there's any problem in the future, we'll talk it out. Don't say things out of anger. She knew that she was really wrong. Sometimes, unintentional words were the most hurtful. Moreover, only those who loved us would be sad and hurt because of our words. The person in his arms was still fine. She could cry, laugh, and scold in his arms. Xiao Su didn't dare to recall the scene of him standing by the bed and watching her unconscious. Living well, was a gift from the heavens. He said with some disappointment and pity, talk it out in the future. You can hit me or scold me to vent your anger, but you can't anger yourself. Chu Qingyan rubbed her nose. She knew that he was right. However, after seeing that he was soothed by her, she couldn't help but change the subject. She sat up from his arms and grabbed the front of his clothes. She said fiercely, okay, that's that. I've already admitted my mistake. Now, I'm going to settle the score with you. You've kept things from me time and time again. Do you really think I can't take it? Xiao Su felt a headache coming on. The person who was as obedient as a cat just now had turned into an angry little tiger. Her face changed abnormally fast. He raised his eyebrows. Is that so? Then how did you faint? She blushed and gritted her teeth. Isn't it all because of you? How could an outsider have the ability to make me take it to heart? To tell you the truth, those rumors outside aren't as damaging as this matter that you're hiding from me. This time, it was Xiao Su's turn to cough lightly. He was a little uncomfortable. Okay. What do you want to know? I'll tell you right now. I won't hide it from you. He didn't dare to say that it wouldn't happen again. Because when it came to the little fellow's matters, he always had to choose the best way. It wasn't that he didn't believe in her ability, but as a husband, if he couldn't shelter his wife from the wind and rain, then what kind of man was he? Chapter 1502. She already knew what she needed to know. Now, there was only one question floating in her mind. Who is targeting me? In all honesty, she did not do anything wrong, so she should not have offended anyone. Xiao Su's expression turned serious. Although there is no evidence, all the signs point to the Moon Palace sect. The Moon Palace sect. These three familiar words caused a familiar figure to appear in Chu Qingyan's mind. It wasn't because of this rumor, but because she missed that person. It was a pity that there was no news of him, and she missed him dearly. Chu Qingyan collected her thoughts and narrowed her eyes. I remember that the Moon Palace sect was on Consort Yu's side. Then this matter should be related to Consort Yu. Xiao Ran had died in the heavenly prison. Although he had committed suicide by taking poison, in Imperial Concubine Moon's eyes, her son had died by their hands. So, if there was a new grudge added to the old grudge, it was understandable that she would use this opportunity to take revenge. That's right. Someone saw Consort Yu and the Moon Palace sect together. However, they were very secretive. They could not be arrested immediately. Xiao Su stroked her black hair, his voice cold. But don't worry. Xiao Lai-Chi has already put them on the top arrest list. I believe that as long as they are still in the Sichuan, they will be caught. Chu Qingyan nodded. She had always been confident in Xiao Lai-Chi's ability. That Lu Mama is already dead. I originally wanted to find some clues from her, but now the clues are gone. She was stunned. Their hands are really long. They even meddled with the harem. Xian Mo's eyes darkened. Xiao Su tightened his grip on her hand. These 2 days, the palace will be purged. You should stay in the hall. No matter what you hear or what happens, don't pay attention to it. Just take care of your baby. She wanted to say that she wasn't that weak, but seeing how nervous he was, she didn't want to bother him at this time. She nodded and said, I've never believed in supernatural forces or gods. Let them say whatever they want. But if there's anything that affects you or makes you feel uncomfortable, you have to tell me. Xiao Su's eyes flashed. He pretended to be relaxed and said, Don't worry, I'm the ruler of a country. No one dares to make things difficult for me. After fainting and talking to him so much when she woke up, Chu Qingyan began to look tired. Normally, she would be able to tell whether he was telling the truth or not, but at this time, she had no energy to distinguish. Her eyelids drooped and she yawned. I'm relieved to hear that. Xiao Su also noticed that she was tired. He laid her body flat, held her hand with one hand, and patted the quilt with the other. Go to sleep. I'm here for everything. Don't worry. Chu Qingyan wanted to say something, but she didn't have the energy to. She slowly fell asleep in his gentle and soft voice. After the person lying on the bed breathed deeply, Xiao Su summoned Ethereal to check her pulse again. After confirming that she was fine, Xiao Su was finally relieved. Leaving Xining, Jean Xian, and Mother Chu, who had rushed over after hearing the news, to take care of her, the two left the inner hall. Ethereal said as he walked, as long as the young princess consort doesn't have any emotional fluctuations, there won't be any problems. In other words, they had to pay close attention to the pregnant woman's emotions. Otherwise, both mother and child would be in danger. Xiao Su naturally knew what he meant. His expression didn't look good from the moment they left the hall. Ayan's safety is in your hands. Zhen won't allow any mistakes. This subordinate obeys. However, the situation outside was not as simple as Xiao Su made it out to be. For example, there was a table full of memorials. They were all saying that the people were complaining and hoped that he would hand over the Yao consort so that she wouldn't bring disaster to the country. At first, he just laughed it off and ignored it. However, those people piled up another large pile of memorials. They said that the Yao consort bewitched the emperor's heart and disturbed his hearing. She was a femme fatale. If he, the emperor, didn't deal with her, he would be bewitched and become a fatuous emperor. Xiao Su sneered and swept all the memorials to the ground. As expected of a civil official, he could spin anything. The next day at morning court. After discussing other political matters, they brought up the old topic again. Minister A, Your Majesty, you can't ignore the people's wishes. This demon's influence is too great. Minister B, water can carry a boat, but it can also capsize it. The people outside are complaining. Your Majesty, you should hand over the Yao consort to appease the people. Minister C, Your Majesty, she's just a woman. She can't be compared to the country. You should know what's more important. Xiao Su sat on the throne and looked coldly at the people echoing one another. They said self-righteous things for his good and the country's good. Everyone's mouths were dry, but they found that the person in question didn't say a word. They all turned to look at the person sitting on the throne. Are you all done? A voice came faintly, sending chills down everyone's spine. No one dared to make a sound. Xiao Su was not angry, but his voice was so calm that it sent chills down people's spines. The demoness, demon, and Yao consort that you keep talking about, but I was the consort of the King of England when I was still the Queen consort. Soon, she will be the mother of the country. Let me ask you, can an ordinary man allow others to slander his wife like this? Lord Lu, Lord Li, can you allow it? After he finished speaking, some people present lowered their heads. The people have been blinded by rumors. As officials of the court, instead of clearing up those false rumors, you have gathered your people to come before me and force me to pay for your ignorance. You are unworthy of being officials, and you are not worthy of the court robes you are wearing. In order to continue my bloodline, my wife struggled on the line of life and death yesterday. You slandered her because of these things. Do you think that it's easy to bully her when she's not here? I can put my words here. She is my wife. If you continue to make things difficult for her, I'll just give up my position as emperor. You can have whoever you want do it, so that you don't have to meddle in my family affairs again and again. Xiao Su's last words shocked the court. The civil and military officials wanted to say something to save the situation, but Xiao Su had already left, leaving everyone looking at each other in shock. That wasn't their purpose. They originally wanted to use this matter to make His Majesty hand over the Yao consort and then expand the harem. How did it turn out like this in the end? Xiao Ho and Xiao Yao looked at each other. It seemed that they had really crossed their imperial brother's bottom line this time. They only felt that water had entered the heads of these officials. They wanted to play tricks, but they couldn't play enough with their imperial brother, okay? Just because he didn't want to be the emperor, he blocked everyone's way. Those old officials who relied on their little achievements had really taken a tumble this time. Ginger really didn't have to be spicier with age. The two didn't pay attention to the officials who had gathered to ask them for advice and directly left to find their imperial brother. At this time, in a meditation hall of the Hugua Temple on Feng Huang Mountain, a green-robed monk with a handsome back and broad aura slowly opened his eyes while chanting. His eyes were compassionate and clear. He lightly tapped his finger a few times and then slightly frowned. She's in trouble again. It seemed that he had to come out of seclusion,